What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Godzilla Masterclass. Super pumped to dive into the making of the short film. Yasaria, thanks for getting hyped up and in the countdown. You might get flagged by the spam bots there, but excited to dive in and show you exactly how we made this short film entirely inside of Unreal Engine. So without further ado, let's get right into screen sharing. The big thing for me today is whether you're a complete beginner or whether you've got a couple projects under your belt and you're ready to make bigger and better films in Unreal. This is for both of you. This is for the people trying to understand how can you start making films, let alone in Unreal Engine. How can you take these blockbuster ideas and actually make them yourself at home, and how can you do it in an easier way? I made a lot of mistakes along the way during this project, and I want to share all those so you can skip ahead a lot faster than I did learning the hard way. So yeah, let's jump into the presentation here, and I'll share my screen. And we'll jump right in. Jacob Weiss, welcome as well. Aladdin, and yeah, seeing a bunch of you guys from PA, from Germany. Jacobus, that's awesome, and from Baltimore. Welcome, welcome. Yo, I'm tuning in from Montreal. So here we go. Let's jump in to the Godzilla Masterclass. Welcome, everybody. So today we're going to be breaking down the visual effects and filmmaking techniques behind this short film. I really want to share all the secrets. I'm holding nothing back all of today. So if you want to stick around, I'm going to give you my entire filmmaking playbook from start to finish, how to go from just an idea early on all the way to finished final visual effects that look just like this. And truly, I started off here on YouTube, self-taught, and it's super important to me to give back and really share all the lessons I had along the way. So today we're gonna cover how to make your own films without these Hollywood budgets using Unreal Engine 5. But before we jump into that, do you guys wanna watch the short film? Do you wanna see what we're talking about here? Godzilla in Unreal 5 and the cinematic trailer we made? Let's jump into it. I wanna share that first, and then we'll break down exactly how we did it. Super anticlimactic there. We got to get the right video up. Let me pull this up so we're looking at the right thing. I want to make sure we're locked. There we go. We're locked and loaded. Let's do the real premiere. Psych you guys out there. Let's do it once and for all. This is Godzilla in Unreal Engine 5. So there we go. That is our short made entirely in Unreal 5 in just over 5 weeks with a team of 3 people really punching above our weight and trying to match that Hollywood visual effects look using totally off-the-shelf PCs, and this exact machine could play off of any laptop out there using the power of Unreal Engine 5. So if we're harnessing this game engine and pushing it to its limits, now is the time. You don't need fancy software. You don't need the resources of visual effects studios with expensive render farms. You can do this yourself at home using the PC you have. And that's really what we want to focus on today is not to see what works for the big visual effects studios out there. It's to think of like, how do we ourselves here as filmmakers, YouTubers, freelancers, hobbyists and professionals out here, how can we really leverage this to make bigger and better films and just have more fun making it along the way? That's that to me is the huge part, is capturing the magic of making films on set. So we're gonna go deep, show you exactly how we did that, and created this short film, each step along the way. But one thing I love to start out with, just to know each of you in the audience a little bit, what is your favorite movie? And to be more exact here, what is the movie that got you excited to make movies? I know there's one out there. I know for a lot of people, it's The Matrix, or some people it's Pirates of the Caribbean, or even Chronicles of Narnia, which was crazy to me because I just never watched that growing up. But what is that film for you? We're seeing The Matrix from Tammin. That's awesome. The chat's getting cut off a little bit on my end. But yeah, for me, it was always... it was Star Wars. It was Star Wars Phantom Menace, even though, yes, I know it's the worst one, but watching that pod racing sequence in theaters when the whole room is shaking and it really feels like you're in there right next to Anakin racing alongside him, that to me was the magic of movies. And then when we got the DVD and we saw the behind the scenes, seeing that this was not, this was made by real people, by real artists and carpenters and visual effects artists, and the whole gamut. I'm seeing a lot of people saying Alien and Godzilla as well. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if you guys have been new to the channel now that with Godzilla here, then I'm sure Godzilla obviously brought a lot of people in. And Godzilla 2014, the remake, was one. I'll get into that story a little bit later. But that was such a foundational piece where you could see the behind the scenes. You could see how these people made it, and it wasn't done in some factory or with these. It felt real. It felt tangible. And if I could just find out what the recipe was, it felt like, what's stopping me from working on these teams? What's stopping me from working at ILM or working on movies like Star Wars? And even from a young age, at like 6 years old, I was obsessed with this idea. I was on YouTube from like 2007, from the very beginning. And I was trying to figure this out from the beginning. I grew up in a small town. I didn't know any single person that was in the industry whatsoever. But I just knew whatever it took, I needed to find a way to work on Star Wars. After just being so obsessed early on, I was going to find my path, even though I didn't have some family member. I didn't know anyone personally at all in the industry. And I was in a town of like 7,000 people surrounded by cornfields in Wisconsin. And yet, I tried everything I could. I started out by just adding after following After Effects tutorials and adding in lightsabers and all that stuff. And along the way, I made so many mistakes because I went as a self-taught artist trying to figure this out through YouTube. Eventually going to film school and spending a lot of money and not getting any sort of result out of that. When I was in college, this is my experience, but there was no one was actually making any films. It was driving me insane. Everyone loved crapping on other people's movies, but no one was making anything. And I was like, guys, let's go out. Let's make something. Like, who cares? Like, we can throw it away. Like, let's just do it for practice. But no one had any sort of film. They didn't have a demo reel specifically. And then no one around me had a job. None of the graduates had a job in the industry. None of the people working there no one at the school, going to school, had a job in the industry. And literally it felt like I was following this line of people just walking to their graves, like for real. Like, none of this works. So I had to find a different way. In the end, I realized that the degree doesn't matter. The degree had no effect on whether people could make it in the industry or get hired at some of these companies working on films like Godzilla, like Star Wars. You just need a demo reel. You need some sort of piece that shows off what you can make, that puts yourself ahead of everyone else. They don't care where you went to school. They don't care how you did it, but some way you need to prove that you are a better artist than everyone else. And if you can do that, if you can prove you are better than everyone else that applied, you can work on any team in the world, on any movie, on any franchise, or get any client you want, because they see how great you are. And it really comes down to your artistic talent. So that's what I want to talk about today, because I learned so much. I went from being a self-taught person here on YouTube to working in the industry and eventually working at ILM, working on Star Wars, working on Alien Covenant, and eventually being a lead compositor on Godzilla vs. Kong, and a compositing supervisor on Dungeons and Dragons. So I really jumped into the deep end, put in the 80 hours a week for many, many years, and found out the hard way and the fun way. I love doing it every single time. I love compositing. I love visual effects. And I think there's a lot I picked up that I want to give back and leave a roadmap for everyone else trying to do the same thing, because it took such a long time. I was deciphering through the tea leaves and trying to find all these, looking through all the other people that came before me, but there wasn't a lot at the time. So that's what I really want to talk about today. Briefly, just to bridge that gap, how I ended up getting into Unreal was through the virtual production of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I worked every day on set, controlling the volume, maybe like you've seen with The Mandalorian. They did that, the virtual production setup on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and we were running, over 90 different environments through there, and I eventually got to build environments for virtual production for movies like Star Trek, and see what it takes to use Unreal Engine on set every single day. So I definitely am a person that I don't want to try to teach something if I haven't literally done it myself in production, and thankfully I've done a little bit of everything. I've made my own short films with motion capture, all the way down to what I do now, which is help students learn Unreal Engine and bring their own ideas to life. So people like Zalushi, someone I worked with recently, is now putting himself into Star Wars, and it's really coming full circle. It's kind of crazy. But today is about you and really trying to transfer a lot of these artistic lessons. I was doing another masterclass just 2 months ago, breaking down how I made this environment, recreating Dune in just 24 hours. And we had some students that followed along, actually paid attention, wrote down notes while we're talking here, and were able to apply these artistic techniques, not just the technical buttons to press. That's not really the important part. It's actually artistically, how do we push our shots to the next level? He was able to actually take the lessons I'm going to teach you today as well, to apply it to his own work and send that off to new job recruits and job postings and help them get hired. So that's really what, that's the best way to get something out of today, is write these lessons down and apply them in your next project. Don't just, don't just treat this like another podcast that's in one ear and you forget about it 2 days from now. I want to break down the whole filmmaking process, how to make it easy using Unreal Engine 5. So yeah, we don't need to worry about any of that industry stuff. We don't need to be born into this industry. Gareth Edwards, the director of Godzilla 2014, also started out as a self-taught visual effects artist and filmmaker, figuring it out himself, just like you and me, right here on YouTube, on FX PhD, finding the resources online and just jumping right into it. And again, just seeing that it's possible. It might be rare, but man, he's done it. There are the people that have literally done this before. And that to me is the people I want to pay attention to and not stop paying attention to.
Created a film.
So yeah, this is actually a course that Gareth Edwards made back in the day. He's trying to pass on the lessons he was learning as well in Premiere and After Effects as he was making his own TV show. This is literally Gareth Edwards, his original course back in the day, using 3ds Max and Premiere and After Effects and all that good stuff. I think that audio's cutting in and out, but that really is like the cycle repeats. And even though it's 10 years later now, why can't it be us? For real, guys. Like, why can't it be you? If you've been waiting on the outside, I remember how many times I would tell people, like, guys, I'm going to work on movies. I'm going to figure out what it takes. And so many people, my parents, my friends, would roll their eyes and say, yeah, sure. Like, they wouldn't say, no, you can't do it, but they wouldn't believe that it was possible. And I just felt like I had to put so much belief and momentum into, like, if they can do it, what is stopping me? And there literally is nothing in your way. I'm just telling you this as someone that's been outside looking in, wondering what it takes. I'm going to teach you the lessons, and then it's going to take the repetitions. It's going to take practice and practice. And for the 20% of you out there that are going to apply this, send your work to me in a month. And let's chat. Let's give some feedback sessions. We'll talk later. But let's move on. That was really the big thing, and that's why working on Godzilla versus Kong was such a huge moment for me. Was literally, I sat there in the theater in 2014, seeing the whole story leading up to Gareth Edwards working on Godzilla and becoming the director of that show, and MPC making the visual effects. And I was like, dude, if I could work at MPC and work on the sequel, like, wouldn't that be crazy? And funny enough, like, years later, it happened. But enough about me. The punchline here is I genuinely believe this, that the next generation of filmmakers is not coming from the studio system. It's coming from people like us. It's coming from people self-distributing their own films right here on YouTube. So I want to help contribute. I want to give back. I want to make it easier for all of us to do this, and give you some templates, give you some cheat sheets so you can do this easier the next time. So just to know where we're at with everyone here, how many projects have you made in Unreal today? How many projects have you finished specifically? Because I know personally I've started, like 80, 90 different projects. Realistically, I'm probably in the 20 ish range, depending on how you want to classify creating your own movie or creating your own game. But even if it's 0, let me know how many projects have you made. If it's 0, don't worry, but let me know, because then I can cater this a little bit more to the filmmaking creative side. That's where we're going to go anyway. But I just want to make sure that this isn't a crowd full of people 25 projects deep, and that, you know, we're just looking for straight tactics. Again, we'll give you some tactics too. Arud, seeing 15 so far. That's awesome. Definitely gonna give you some cool tips in the third chapter here. But a lot of people at 0, with 0 projects finished, and honestly, you're at the perfect spot right here where, hey, we're gonna figure out from the bottom, how do you make films inside of Unreal? How do you actually start from day one? So really quick, we'll touch on this super fast, and then we'll go right into the behind the scenes of Godzilla. But I want to touch on this because since a lot of you are at 0 projects, it might not be obvious why we're using Unreal Engine for this film. Like in a perfect world, couldn't we use Maya, or couldn't we use Blender or any of these other softwares? Why are we using Unreal Engine to bring this film to life? Well, I get this comment, you probably have seen this all over Instagram and YouTube comments and Reddit comments. You see a crazy CGI short, and then the first comment every time is like, whoa, I bet you need an $8,000 computer to render this out, or like, what's the bill for your render farm? But the bottom line is, it doesn't have to be expensive to render out films. At least it doesn't have to anymore. It did for literally the last 25, 30 years, up until Unreal Engine 5 came out, and we were able to take advantage of something called real-time rendering. So we don't have to deal with these slow render times. And this is where, like, I see so many people, they're getting pulled in all these different directions, wondering, should I learn Unreal? Should I learn Blender? I'm learning Cinema 4D for motion graphics, but I'm gonna learn Maya for my characters. And the bottom line is, if you're getting pulled in 5 different directions and you're learning 5 or 6 different softwares at the same time, you're really not mastering any one of them. And what I've found time and time again is that if you work in Unreal and you stay in Unreal, you get the power of real-time rendering and real-time filmmaking the entire time you're making a film. So we don't want to see the pixelated wall of death that we see with Blender and Maya. Every time I see this, literally in my brain, it just feels like the creativity stops. I see this wall of, like, I was making this momentum, we were chugging along, I feel like we're getting in our groove, we're adding in lights, we're pulling our scene together, and then we have to wait around to see the final result. And it just totally goes against this instant creative process. Like when you're working on a film set, you move the light up, you see the light in real time. You ask an actor to turn their head to the left or whatever it is, you get that real-time feedback. But when you're working in CG, there's always this couple minutes in between what your idea and your finished result. So my main mission after working in the visual effects studios for such a long time was to figure out, how can I do this myself without paying like thousands and thousands for render farms and all these different things. And the big problem with old school visual effects is that when you add more geometry and more detail into your scene, more objects, more buildings in your city or whatever you're building, the longer it's going to take to render out. And you're punished for making your scene look better. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's not a way for the rest of us to really make films. So the bottom line is that we straight up cannot make films the way visual effects studios do. They have the budgets, they have the resources that none of us are going to have. You can't deal with 30-minute render per frame, 30 minutes per frame. We need a better way. And that's when I found real-time rendering with Unreal Engine, where you get that instantaneous result, just like a video game, just like you're in photo mode in The Last of Us or God of War. We can do that, but make our own films and place our characters, make our own stunts, make our own animations. And we don't have to be an animator to do this sort of stuff. You'll see as we go how easy this can be, even for complete beginners who have never used 3D before. So yeah, we want to take advantage of the power of Unreal Engine, which is real-time lighting, and there is no limit to the amount of detail we can add into our scene. We can literally add billions, and I'm not kidding here, billions of polygons like you see in this scene here, and play something like this off of a modern day laptop, off of a gaming PC or a MacBook. This is the power of Unreal Engine, and we're going to harness it, leverage it for our own scenes so that we can just totally bypass the rendering process. And whether you want to make completely photorealistic renders or you want to make more stylized projects, there is no limits with Unreal Engine. It's another tool where it's really up to your own creativity. And that's what you'll see is the punchline of today, is it's not really about the tool. Unreal really unlocks the chain, so we never wait for renders ever again. but we still have to be great artists underneath it. And that's what we'll cover today. That's where I get super excited. So there's a lot of great films using Unreal Engine. Even Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix is using Unreal Engine for the episode In Vaulted Tombs. And obviously Unreal Engine is also used on set in virtual production. So it's used in so many ways, but if you learn the core skill set, you don't have to learn a brand new thing to use Unreal Engine for virtual production versus filmmaking. They really they extend off of the other. They're really easy to learn once you know how Unreal Engine works in the first place. So we're going to use it to practice filmmaking. That's exactly what Gal did, and that's why he was able to make this. We're going to use it to hopefully help you start freelancing and making bigger and better projects, whether that's product ads and you're selling Nikes or protein powders, or making your own short films like you're seeing here, or whether we're going to use Unreal Engine to work on set. Like I said, it's the same core skill set, guys. So that's why I'm so excited. Hopefully you guys are too. We'll get pumped up here and we'll dive into how we made Godzilla, go into the behind the scenes, and how to make your own blockbuster movies without the Hollywood budgets using Unreal Engine 5. All right, so let's jump in. You guys excited? All right, so let's do it. How you can create Hollywood level films and visual effects without knowing how to code, without knowing how to model, without knowing how to animate. I truly mean this. I'm gonna tackle each one of these individually today. You'll see it by the end. I'm gonna hold my promise here. You don't need to know any of these to get started. I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to Unreal. So let's jump into it. So these are the chapters that we're gonna jump into today. Come on. I made too many slides. Let's go here. So the first chapter we're going to jump into is how to actually make your film and make an animated film without being an animator. This is my new previs filmmaking workflow, so anyone can make a first draft of your film in a single day without being an animator, without doing anything fancy. This is honestly the biggest breakthrough I had on this project was in this first chapter. So that's going to be super exciting. Really love to talk through that and just how to think like a filmmaker. That really is the thing to hold on to, is to hold on to that initial spark from the beginning and bring it from idea to finished film. It's way easier to do it when you're working in real time and you can just make planes fly in seconds like this. So that's going to be chapter 1. Then we're going to go through the shortcuts for filmmaking in Unreal Engine and specifically how to recreate the on-set techniques, how to help us build cities, how to work with characters, things like that. Working faster and easier inside of Unreal Engine. We'll break through the visual effects process as well, and how I was able to go from these video game renders. A lot of people get worried because it's Unreal Engine, it's a video game engine. They're like, oh, it's gonna look like a video game. And it will if you don't follow along with this last chapter. So stick with me. That's chapter 3, is this last step that most people skip over, which is compositing. It's the step that's gonna upgrade your renders to that Hollywood level visual effects every single time. So yeah, let's jump into this. So how to go from idea to final film using Unreal 5. Let's do it. Boom. All right, so I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, I'm not an animator, so there's no way I could make an animated film, right? Well, I think that's completely wrong, because I am not an animator. I am not a character animator. I don't plan on becoming one, and yet I'm still going all in on Unreal Engine. Now, how is that possible? A lot of people get confused by this, assuming you need to master all these 10 different skills to start making your first film in Unreal. It's not really true. So I want to share this really cool framework, which really helped me unlock previs and actually make the first draft of my film before I spend hours and hours detailing the rain and the fog and the smoke and the city and Godzilla's scales and making it look perfect. How can we not worry about that at the beginning, worry about the film first and foremost? Sometimes we need to slow down to go fast, and a lot of times people jump into, they just are making this in the wrong order, basically. So really quick, let's look at this pod racing scene from Phantom Menace. So if I see this and I was like, okay, now, Brandon, your task is to make this exact scene in Unreal Engine. What are you gonna do? Most people are gonna find a model of the pod racers, they're gonna throw them into Unreal, and they're gonna start animating them along the track, and they're gonna start plotting out keyframes and start animating around and start building it out. And funny enough, this is a huge beginner's trap, is that if you jump into this too quickly, then you're basically putting the cart before the horse. I did this so many times. So it sounds like such a basic mistake, but I'm telling you, I've wasted months of my life by not by doing this in the wrong order so many times. So when I wanted to make something like that pod racing scene, I would think to jump right into the animation. I would spend so much time animating. But the reason this is a problem, the reason this is a trap in the first place, is that when we're talking about making films, most people are starting out. If you're here, it's probably because you're a visual effects artist of some sort, right? Like some of you probably know After Effects or Photoshop or Blender or Maya or Houdini or whatever it is. We come from a lot of visual effects backgrounds. So a lot of times we're going to go laser focused into the visual effects side, and we're going to polish the final image instead of polishing the final film. So we don't want to focus on the visual effects. We want to focus on the filmmaking. So what is the difference here? So filmmaking and cinema, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make cinema. Cinema is the art of movie making, and cinema is video and sound together. And everyone's focusing on the video and the visual effects, and I get that because I started out doing that too. But that's only 50% of your actual workflow. So we need to combine video and sound together before we go into the visual effects. So that's why it's so important to not jump into animation right away. We need to work on the sequence, not the final visual effects shot. So that's the key thing we need to flip on its head here. We need to create the sequence before your visual effects. But you're probably thinking right now, like, okay, how do you do that? Like, it's kind of the chicken and the egg situation, right? Like, how do you make that film before you have the animation, if you need the animation for the film, yada, yada, yada. So I also got stuck in this little loop and trying to figure out, okay, but what's the best way forward? How are these big studios making these films? Like, it was just blowing my mind. So finally, I was like, F it, I'm gonna just read the book. I wanna learn from the pros. So over Christmas break in 2023 into 2024, I picked up this book called Creativity Inc., which was written by the president of Pixar. So this dude founded Pixar 10 years before they made Toy Story and was literally the godfather of modern day CGI. Ed Catmull, he wrote some of the earliest shaders, built some of the first hands in CGI, if you know what I'm talking about. It's that one that you're thinking of. And he founded Pixar. And what was so interesting reading this book and hearing how they make movies, because remember, it's Pixar, guys. They have made Oscar award-winning movies back to back to back to back. How are they able to do this? I was trying to understand their story process and like, how do you go from story to editing to the like, it feels like this black box. And it's so funny. The deeper I looked, they say it themselves that their process hasn't really changed at all in 25 years. How they write their stories and how they make the first draft of their films. So I was like, okay, dude, I gotta learn this. So the huge thing they do differently is they just create a story reel. So no one at Pixar reads scripts. Nobody. There is a story department where there is a screenwriter. They hire some good screenwriters, some Oscar award-winning screenwriters that are in there. But the story department, no one is going to pick up a script and read it. What the story department is going to do is they're going to take this idea and immediately they're going to make it into a film, into a story reel, where they're going to illustrate each frame and create it into a film with video and sound together. So that's the key thing here is one component is making the visuals. Yes, we're drawing this out. We're capturing each shot in our sequence. But it's important to know here, the goal is not just to make a comic strip. And if you're not an illustrator, do not worry. I'm going to show you how to do this in Unreal. It's like hilariously easy once you know what to do in the first place. But the goal here is not to make a comic strip, it's to make a film first and foremost. So to do that, to create a story reel using Pixar's terminology, and by the way, a story reel here is the same thing as previs or as an animatic or whatever you want to say. I think of it as the first draft. That's the best way to me. I don't really care what you want to call it. Call it whatever you want. But it's that first version of the video and sound together. So I think the best way to actually break this down is to look at an example from Pixar themselves. So just to tee up this clip, this is a story reel from the screenwriter himself, Michael Arndt, who has a YouTube channel. Michael Arndt, the screenwriter, who has won an Oscar for this movie and for Little Miss Sunshine, has a YouTube channel. It's like 30,000 subscribers. It's like a really great kept secret. Write that down as well if you're really paying attention and want to make notes, he has some great video essays explaining exactly how he did this. So I took this from his Toy Story 3 example. But where we're at in the story, just so we can watch this clip together and see how it's done. Toy Story 3 is about Andy going off to college and abandoning the toys. The toys eventually get donated to the daycare. Woody wants the whole crew to look up and be encouraged by what's going on, but they find out how bad it is to be in daycare on their first day. So let's watch it. It's filled with comedy. It's a thing that'd be really hard to animate yourself. So let's see how they tackle it using these really simple illustrations.
They're here! They're finally here! Ah, I'm gonna be playing with... Rex?
New toys.
So there you go. You can see how they're actually able to tell a story and tell emotion. And if you think about how the music kept the rhythm of the scene, as all of the kids, they're their own Godzilla in that sequence, running into the scene, stomping through everything, taking Barbie and taking her hair and smearing it on the wall in blue paint, making these comedic moments. But even if you look at their old films like Finding Nemo, they're creating these really beautiful family moments. And this is how they're able to do it, is by drawing it out beforehand, not by animating everything first, but figuring out, does this sequence work at the most basic level, at the rudimentary level? Does this work or does it not? Because the only thing that's going to happen is that the visuals are going to look a little bit better. But if the movie sucks, the visuals aren't going to save it. It's the bottom line. So the good thing, though, is that to recreate this process, it's even easier if we use Unreal Engine. So we don't need to draw, we don't need to be an illustrator to do this like they are at Pixar. Although if you are, that's great too. But we can just screenshot our viewport in Unreal and get the same exact result and do it way, way faster. So this is the new approach that I took on this Godzilla film. So this is the very beginning of just getting the basic raw assets in the scene, the helicopters, the first buildings, Godzilla himself, and just starting to map out what this movie could be and trying to keep it creative. So I wanted to make it about a pilot versus Godzilla. So I went through with this reverse shot. The pilot starts nearing in closer, and I'm able to move around in my viewport and find this composition in a really creative way. I'm able to zoom in and frame up on the pilot. And even though I don't have a pilot character in the cockpit here, we're able to lay this out and map it in a story by taking these screenshots and placing them in an editing timeline. So this is just the basics, and then I was thinking, okay, cool, what if that pilot swoops in and starts shooting down gunfire at Godzilla from above, and then he swings around, and you can probably start noticing the parallels between this and the final film already. He starts to swing around and look back, but now the pilot's out of Godzilla's way, and then Godzilla screeches at the sky. And this was the very first draft. This was version 1, just mapping it out, being creative. And there's a lot of holes here. There's a lot of things not finished and a lot of things I was going to add later. But at least I had a first draft to start making those types of decisions and start assessing, okay, what do we need to do to make this pilot character more real or more human? Or how can we make this scarier? One thing specifically that I was thinking, well, I guess, yeah, we'll go into how we, some of the more filmmaking aspects later, but just to map this out, if you're taking notes, write this down. This is the 5-step framework of how to create that storyboard in Unreal. Is first screenshot your viewport. It's as simple as it sounds, for real. Like, most of you won't do this, I swear. but it's as easy as it sounds. You screenshot your viewport, you're gonna add those shots into a timeline, so into Premiere, into Resolve, into Movie Maker, into iMovie, it doesn't matter. They're all editing softwares, and you get them in a timeline, and then you're going to add in any stills and clips, but more importantly, you're going to add in music and sound effects, and you wanna find out the pacing and the rhythm of your scene. Finding a great piece of music at the beginning can really set the tone for a great movie. And at this point, personally, I'm not saying you have to do this, but what I personally do is I always start with music now. It is one of the first steps, because like, what are we doing? If we don't have music, if we're trying to make a sequence, what are we doing here? Like, you can't really finalize anything if you don't have the music. So I definitely love adding that, tying together the music and the visuals together. And if that's your jam, you wanna do this early on. And then the good part is you can continue to refine your edit. You can make those creative decisions. And so what I did is I made that first draft. I found a temp music. It was decent. It wasn't great, but at least I could see what it was like in action. But I realized I was missing some different shots. So one thing, as I was filling out my edit, a big lesson I learned, and just a thing a lot of people are afraid of in this step is like, okay, sure, like I could screenshot my viewport, but is that really gonna tell the story of my scene? A lot of people think that. And the answer is no, if you don't pose your characters. So a key thing here is you need to pose your characters, but don't animate them. Don't spend the time to animate a full biped human running around in a scene, jumping up and down. You can tell a story through the pose of the character. So let's actually take a look at this to see a real example. So in this first screenshot, you can see Godzilla standing up tall. This is actually me trying to recreate a shot from the 2014 movie. Him standing up tall, looking stoic, overlooking the city, unbothered by planes and everything around him. And then this next screenshot is him cowering up in the air, twisting around, swatting his arms. And it has a completely different feel. So even just by these single images, you put one in your sequence versus the other, one tells the story, one doesn't. So you really can get away with just posing your characters and doing it simply. And sometimes you can, it seems a little crazy, but taking pictures of yourself, doing the pose, whatever it is, in the right angle, and then remapping it. I did plenty of that in this, and also just seeing other movies and comics and just trying out different poses to see what's gonna be interesting. And then you can move around the camera afterwards and find an even better shot. And then, so one last thing I did, as I was just trying to amplify the scariness and make it feel, just as dangerous as possible in a short amount of time, because it's only a 45-second long short film, obviously. One question I was asking myself early was, what perspective are we trying to tell this story from? And how could we change up the perspective to make this scarier? So one thing I did after I did that first pass, I created the very first version, but there was no shots from the ground level. It was all from the pilots flying around in the sky. So I went back into my viewport, I went at the ground level, I started pointing that camera up at the sky and moving around Godzilla until I could find a cool shot. And then, tried out some different ideas, took a couple different screenshots, and you can probably recognize this as the very first shot in the sequence, but it started out blocked out just like this, in a super simple way, using free animations, free characters, and just bashing this together to assemble this and get a first screenshot together. And this is enough to start telling your story. So the key thing is to just create a camera for every angle, so you can go back to that original camera and you can update that shot later. That's one super tactical piece of advice for you guys using Unreal already, is just create a new camera every time you're doing this process. And that makes it really easy to pick it up later and animate it. But the real punchline and the milestone we're trying to hit here is to get that first draft of your storyboard done, where you're happy with the pacing and rhythm of your movie. And you can then even go add in voiceover and do it yourself for that first draft. Like for Pixar in their story department, it's literally the screenwriter and the storyboard artist doing the voices on that first draft. And honestly, to me, that makes it way more fun. I want to make movies. Everyone's talking about, oh, I'm gonna use AI to make my movies for me. It's like, dude, I wanna make the movie. I don't want someone else making my movie for me. Why did we start doing this in the first place? It's to actually make the art ourselves. So to me, that is the super fun part. And then it's really easy to go back in and update these shots and literally just click on our clapperboard inside of Unreal, press the render button, and we get our real-time renders that go out super, super quick. And then we can literally drag and drop that into our editing timeline and go from a screenshot into an animated film. So I'll go back in, I'll start animating the cameras and start to refine this, start basically adding, building it up layer by layer. But it all starts with those screenshots, and they go from screenshot to an animated shot to final visual effects. And it happens really, really fast, as we'll go into next. But this is where it starts, with the animated sequence, with your film. So y'all, can you take screenshots? Can every one of you take screenshots in Unreal? Can we just accept that yes, you can, and if you don't, that it's probably because you're not actually taking that step and making films yourself? This is truly a mind-bending, like this completely changed how I look at making films, and I swear, like in the shadows behind everyone, this is what I'm doing now, is creating way more storyboards before I go into final polished animation, is working more on the screenshots, on laying out our sequences. And I swear, if you did this exercise, just screenshotted films, so it's screenshots and music, and you made 10 simple films, 1-minute short films, doing this method, you would be 10 times the filmmaker you are today, and that would put you ahead of so many other people out there right now, just doing it with screenshots. So many people, there's so much time wasted in that second half, but the film doesn't really change all that much between the beginning to the end. It all is there in that initial previs. So definitely use this. Start here, whether you're working in Blender or Maya or anything else, or you're in Unreal Engine, this is the best way to map out your scenes if you're just beginning and you're just starting out using Unreal. Is that cool? Because yeah, if we can take our screenshots, we can create our first storyboards. Well, cool. Well, we have now progressed through chapter 1. We did it, guys. We made it. We made it all the way to chapter 2. But before we do that, I just want to show you what that final previs looked like. So we could, it's a little embarrassing to show off the first version, but I want to be transparent and show you exactly what that bar was when I transitioned from a film over into going on to filmmaking and visual effects. So is that starting to make sense? I hope that gives you a little bit more context as to what it looks like for real to go from early rough animation. I know it's rough, I know it's early, but also you can notice if you look back, it didn't change all that much. And the fundamental parts of where you're pointing your eye and the way the music and just the pacing of the rhythm and the stomps of Godzilla and the roars are all there at the very beginning. So don't skip over this step. I know it's fun to get into the flashy visual effects parts of Unreal. That's what we're gonna get into next, is how to make our shots look awesome, and how I'll share some really cool Hollywood visual effects techniques that you can start applying to your films. But at its core, good visual effects will not fix a crappy movie. It is, we learned it from Star Wars Phantom Menace. Sorry, George, didn't mean it. But yeah, so let's keep going. Let's go into our next chapter, the shortcuts for filmmaking inside of Unreal Engine and how we can do it faster and easier without being an animator ourselves. So what we're gonna talk about here, first gonna talk about characters, how we tackle them, but more importantly, how you can tackle characters for your own films. I just wanna give you a couple things I wish I knew, because you're here, we're talking Unreal. I wanna give you a couple nuggets I wish I had someone tell me. And then we'll go into environments and then the Hollywood visual effects look on our shots. So the bottom line is you need characters to make a film. I think this is the biggest thing and the biggest mistake I see. Maybe mistake is a harsh word, but I'm sure you've seen this before. You've seen Unreal Engine demo reels out there or portfolios, whatever you want to say. And there are so many that are this environment that's like a static camera, static scene, and it looks more like a photograph than anything from a movie. And even if you animate the cameras and you put that camera in and it's shallow depth of field and you focus in on some rocks on the beach, I'm sorry guys, but I don't mean to be a critic, but it's probably not a real film. And take it how I mean it. I'm not trying to degrade anything. And these are the steps you have to take to get better. But let's be honest, it's not a real film. It's just not. And that's okay. I just want us to start on that playing field so we know why it's so important to add characters into our film. Because we're not trying to make environment reels. We're trying to make a sequence. We're trying to bring giant Godzilla action sequences to life. So we're going to need characters, humans or otherwise. But the good news is that you don't have to be a character animator to deal with this. I have some really cool shortcuts that you can use. The first of which is completely free. So a lot of people get intimidated when they hear characters of like, oh, do I need to learn how to be a character modeler? And do I need to, animate all this stuff? The good news is you don't. You can use some free assets that are given away for free by Epic Games, by Unreal Engine, and just drag and drop them into your scene. They're completely rigged. They have animations, they're textured, and they look awesome. So this is what we actually use in Unreal Fundamentals to just have people create an action scene right away and jump right into the fun parts, is downloading some of these characters, the Paragon characters, and just dropping them into your 3D environments, and then using these pre-existing animations to make these characters fight each other. So we have characters, we have animations. You don't have to worry about animating them yourself. You can literally stitch together these pre-existing animations, just like in a video game that are like stitching together these 6 or 7 animations. That is by far the best way to just jump into the fun filmmaking side of Unreal with characters, is just to go to the Epic Games Marketplace and search for Paragon. That's the thing to write down here, is Paragon. That is the secret 7 letters that will save you a ton of time and let you experiment really early on with your filmmaking journey in Unreal. This is like, oh my God, I wish someone told me about that like a year into, I just took so long before I knew about that resource. So that's for the complete beginners out there. But how do you make an animated film if you're not an animator? Well, the bottom line is, if you want to animate anything or create a keyframe, as you probably know from other softwares out there, 3D or otherwise, if you want to animate anything with a keyframe, it's going to happen inside of Sequencer. So if let's actually look at this and kind of break down what that looks like. So for this shot here, the helicopters are animated in Sequencer. The muzzle flashes are animated in Sequencer. Actually, the playback isn't working here. Give me one sec as we let the computer load back up. The bottom line is that everything that you're going to animate, from the Godzilla character, from the helicopters to the lights. One example we have here is Godzilla swats through the air and it hits that helicopter and it explodes and this orange light glows into the scene. That orange light that gets brighter and then darker when the explosion goes away was animated inside of Sequencer. So the bottom line is everything is going to be animated inside of Sequencer. And the easy way to start animating characters is to avoid humans and people with arms and legs and flapping mouths that you have to animate, and start with vehicles instead. This is one of those huge shortcuts that it's just by doing this instead of metahumans, you will save so much time, especially when you're on those first 1 to 5 projects and you're still trying to get your feet wet and understand it. Don't make it complicated. Start with vehicles, just like we did with these not the helicopters, but these biplanes, and I guess there were other helicopters in the scene. And this way, we can create 2 or 3 keyframes. We can just worry about the arc of the motion of what we're doing, but it doesn't have to be perfect. We don't have to worry about how the knees turn, or does this run match a human run. It's much easier, and I think any beginner can kind of walk in and use a helicopter, use a plane, and start to animate that flight path and make it look photorealistic. And what's super cool is that once we have that flight path animated, then we can take our camera inside of Unreal and treat it kind of like a GoPro, where we can literally attach it onto our plane and it will be parented, or just imagine it attached to like a long pole, or in this case, we could attach it right to the cockpit of the plane itself and have it looking over the shoulder of our pilot and looking down at Godzilla. And as that plane starts to bank around, so does the camera as well. So this is a really cool way where, again, you don't have to be some fancy senior animator to get started. You can tell incredibly huge stories and make some really compelling shots by just thinking like a filmmaker. And just by doing what they do in real life. Like in Dunkirk, this is what they're doing. They're bolting a camera onto the plane so that, you know, they can still point it around, but so that it actually can be piloted and aimed in real life. So we're just trying to think through, how would they do this on set? How could we recreate this in Unreal? That's all we're trying to do here. So even when we're looking at the cockpit here, we can zoom in and we can get closer. And you know what? Actually, I might restart this presentation really, really quick. Just like you pull it down and pull it back up, just so that my videos are freezing a little bit here. So let me do that. It'll just take a second, and we'll jump back into the video clips, because the videos are super important. I think it's so helpful to see in action, you know, the filmmaking side of things, so you can actually see how the planes are moving through the scene. If you guys have any questions right now, throw them in the chat as we're in this filmmaking side of Unreal. Let me know. But otherwise, we'll be up in just a second here. We'll get back up and running. But actually, Sam, Dave, that you actually wanted to be a 3D modeler and animation for films. Is this still a good path to go in for films? Yes, I would say for sure. Like, great asset artists, great artists will not be replaced. Teams will get smaller. Great artists will not get replaced. I truly believe that. So you just got to really, I think to me, the broad path when you're trying to decide on a career path is you want to try out a bunch of different things, find out what you like the most, what you can see yourself spending the most time doing, and then double, triple down on it and just try to become the best at that one thing. So then it's really easy to say like, hey, I'm great at just this. I'm great at 3D modeling robots or Pixar type characters or photorealistic characters or environment assets or trees or whatever it is. Just try to build out a specialty like that. It's this careful balance between generalist into specialist. But yeah, let's jump back into the clips themselves so we can talk about filmmaking inside of Unreal. Also, I'm seeing someone ask, do I use path tracing while I'm rendering? No, I do not use path tracing, and everything you saw in the Godzilla short, none of it was path traced. It was all using like the game engine render. So the big idea there, we'll get into in just a sec, is that honestly, like, you want to hold on to the real-time aspects of Unreal Engine. Your workflow is either all real-time or it's not real-time at all. So that's the key thing here. So actually, this is a great segue right back into exactly what we're talking about, is that if we suddenly start path tracing this scene halfway through, now we're putting up barriers. We're slowing down our work. We're slower to see this result. I want to work fluid. I want to work fast, and I want to work like I would on set, where I can literally move this camera in and move around the dials and have complete control over that scene all in real time. So we rigged the cockpit for the actual plane there. But yeah, we were able to, again, just trying to think like a filmmaker. If I had to shoot this scene in a helicopter swerving around Godzilla here, the pilot or the person holding the camera itself would just be there in the seat next to the gunman and shooting outside of that window. So again, we're just trying to recreate what would actually happen here. And then a lot of the magic just happens instantaneously. And why you don't see a lot of this happening in Blender and Maya and other softwares is because you just never get to this point. You're never in this fully creative zone. You're either seeing a fully gray shaded, you know, boring looking viewport where you can't visualize that final result, instead of just seeing, you know, in the right scale, Godzilla next to these helicopters and really being able to bring them to life. It's just a completely different feeling. And it really is a feeling. It's kind of the art instead of the science. It's just the feeling of being creative all the time and never breaking away from that flow state as you're working. And that's really what's so cool here. And another advantage is that because it's a game engine, we can do things like you would in Call of Duty or Fortnite, and that is make your own muzzle flashes. I actually made a complete tutorial on just this topic, a whole 20-minute deep dive masterclass on just how to make muzzle flashes. So I won't get into this now, but that exists on the YouTube channel. So subscribe and check out that video if you haven't. That's one of my favorites that I made in a while, so check that out. But yeah, the bottom line here, what I want to just help you focus in on, and the lesson to take away from, is that if you want to save time, start with vehicles. The first films you make, make them with vehicles, whether it's a car or a tank or a plane or a helicopter, whatever it is, a Boeing 747, it doesn't matter, but make it easier on yourself and make it a vehicle for that first film. And once you get the basics, it's really easy to add humans into that scene once you get the groundwork and once you understand how it all works together. Does that make sense? Sweet. So yeah, definitely this was my approach, as you can see as well, was to start with tanks, start with vehicles, add in characters step by step. This is some of the early work I made in Unreal. And it was all through starting with the tanks and then slowly adding in the character animations as I understood how Unreal Engine was starting to work. Lastly, let's talk about how we animated Godzilla, just so you understand the roadmap for animating characters that are as big and crazy as Godzilla and how you could approach something like that for your own films. So yeah, this is the G-Man, Godzilla, for this short. This probably is not a surprise to you. If it is a surprise, I'm deeply sorry. I did not model and texture and create a custom Godzilla model from scratch just for the short film, considering we did it in such a short amount of time. We got a model off of the internet, and then which I will also link to anyone that wants to get it. It's up there on TurboSquid. You just type in Godzilla, and it's right there for everyone to take. But the key thing that we did here that's different, that you need to know with Unreal, is that we were able to animate Godzilla inside of Unreal Engine, which is sort of a newer thing, to animate inside of Unreal Engine, because we had a control rig. So control rig is the thing that unlocks the ability to pose and change around your characters inside of Unreal. And yeah, so we were able to, I was able to connect with a rigging artist who was able to put this together in just a day, so I could keep building out the city and all that, and then he could spend all his time rigging this asset. But a lot of people get scared when I say, like, oh, you got to work with other people or hire other artists. I'm hiring other artists now that I'm like doing this full time, but the reality is I've worked on personal projects for literally like 13 years. And most of that was spent DMing people on Reddit, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, wherever, and saying, dude, I love this project you made. Here's something I made. I think I could help you out with XYZ because of this, for a real, genuine reason. And saying, dude, can I help you out with this? Or do you want to help me on my personal project? Here's a pitch deck showing you the whole thing. So come in with evidence, come in with things that you've actually made. Don't just come in with, like, you know, a log line and some AI concepts. Come in with some heat, come in with the, you know, with something that's real, and sell your project to other people. And I swear, senior artists working in the industry today will still work on personal projects for free if the project is awesome. Like, I know this because I'm still that way, and so many of my friends are too. So I just know it. You can believe me or not, doesn't really matter, but I know it to be true. If you have a compelling project and you can pitch it in an interesting way, you can get anyone to help work on your film, whether that's an animator or a rigger or a character artist or whatever it is. You just got to be a little bit more resourceful. That's really all it is. But that's my rant for today. There we go. But the key takeaway on Godzilla was actually working with riggers and animators. So I also worked with John Abenheim, who has his own channel here on YouTube at Watch Me Animate. He has some great beginners animation tutorials as well. But he actually had used Maya and 3ds Max up until this point. So this was his first project using Unreal, and we were able to get him up to speed in just a single day, which is pretty sweet to know that, like, hey, it was actually feasible. But yeah, so that is how we were able to put this together, is by dividing and conquering it, where they were able to go all in on the characters, and I was able to go all in on the city and compositing. And then when we combine them together, that's when the magic happens. And that's exactly what it's like when you work on a film set. It's not just you alone on set, holding the camera, acting, holding the boom mic, putting up the lights, doing everything on your own. Like, that you would be insane if you're trying to do everything yourself on a film set. But for some reason, it feels totally normal as visual effects artists to say, oh no, I'm gonna do the rigging, and I'm gonna model the characters, and I'm gonna model the floors, and I'm gonna texture, anyway, it just becomes so much so fast. Break down your projects, keep it simple on yourself. Keep your project simple, limit the scope, and by using vehicles, doing these sorts of things, these are the sorts of shortcuts that it's not by, the big shortcut is by completely eliminating the complicated paths. So that's what I'm trying to do here, trying to give you some wisdom, some hard-earned lessons, that there are lots of landmines, I should say, in your path when learning Unreal, and these are the few that are gonna save you months, if not years, to actually just get right into the fun filmmaking side of filmmaking. So yeah, this was the Godzilla model. Got it off Turbo Squid. Pretty low res, to be honest. So we were able to just keep detailing it, and the lighting actually did a lot of the heavy lifting here to make him look huge and more realistic. A lot of people say that textures can't save bad lighting. So like I'm gonna ditch the metaphor there. It's not worth getting into. The textures work great. The big thing here is that good lighting can save crappy textures. Great lighting saves crappy textures. So you can have pretty low res textures, pretty underwhelming mega scans and things like that. But if you light them correctly, your audience doesn't have to know. So that's the cool part. But yeah, so that's enough about Godzilla. That's how we did that with Control Rig, and that's just a brief overview of vehicle and character animation inside of Unreal Engine. So is that clicking with you guys? Does that at least make sense on the different paths that you have here to start animating in Unreal? I want to just give you an overview so you know all the different roads ahead, because again, you could go all in on each one of these paths, but until you know that they exist, a lot of Unreal can just be so confusing and daunting just because there's a lack of knowledge. It can feel like kind of going through the dark with a blindfold on for a lot of it. So hopefully this is shining a little bit of light, giving you a roadmap for the animation side, because a lot of beginners stumble over this step. But if you use vehicles, you don't need to be a great animator to get started and make that first film. So there you go. Also some free resources with the Paragon assets. That is our chapter on characters. Let's move on to how to make better environments. All right. So a lot of people say that this is great, Josh. This sounds cool. Sure, you can take screenshots. I can download characters. I can download environments. I don't need to animate anything. That's cool, sure. But I don't know how to 3D model things. And like making a whole city, that has to be super, super complicated, right? The reality is there are so many cool shortcuts that you can take where you don't have to 3D model anything to make your first films. And Unreal Engine makes it super easy with Quixel Megascans. So this is how we can make these complicated cities and complicated environments without being 3D modelers ourselves. That's what I want to jump into next, is how to build cinematic environments. So Godzilla versus Kong, back in 2019, I learned a ton on this project. This was the very first time I was a lead compositor on a film. And it was a pretty daunting task because I had to set the look of this entire movie. So I was one of the first people on it. We got some really basic lighting passes of some of these opening shots of the city. There wasn't really any neon, there wasn't any glowing lights, and I had to just start inventing something. So we had something to look at and start chipping away and see, is this working, is this not working? And again, just starting with that first draft. A lot of time, just getting that first draft is the hardest part. So how are we able to do that with our environment? How can we put an entire city together without spending months doing that, like you would if you're trying to build Hong Kong from scratch, like we did at a visual effects studio, as we're being crazy over there, is we can use a lot of free assets. So Quixel Megascans is the best library, and it's also just free and built into Unreal. So those of you that have used Unreal, I'm sure you know about this, but for those beginners out there, there's over 40,000 free assets that you can click and drag into your scene directly that are photo scans from reality. And the Quixel team goes out into the world, collects these scans, because we're all created in the drag and drop them into our scenes. The other biggest mistake, really quickly make some impressive environments in no time. So a lot of times I'll start with Quixel assets, but in this case I was looking for some modern day city environments. So I actually found this asset pack from Big Medium Small, which again, making all these assets by hand yourself would take a lot of time. I like to, if I can find artists that have done it for a fraction of the amount, I'm gonna go and find them and be able to, that's why I love packs, and we use a couple on this short, is because ultimately it just lets us save so much time and just worry about the filmmaking side of Unreal Engine. So yeah, we got this pack from Big Medium Small. This is in the description if you wanna grab this as well, so check that out. It had characters and it had buildings themselves, and it was great to just be able to drag and drop these into my scene. But a thing that so many beginners skip over, this is so basic that everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, of course you need to do this. But so many people, I've worked with so many beginners that are weeks into their project, and I say, hey, show me your reference. What's your key reference that you're looking at to make this project? And they're like, what? Key reference, what are you talking about? The bottom line is the senior artist in the industry never, ever skip over the step of collecting reference for your scene. And the more senior I've gotten, and the more I've just seen it in real life, it's actually better to go to a physical location and see it with your eyes, experience it, and capture footage with a camera if you really want to know what things need to look like in CG. So to do that on this project, I live in Montreal. I went down to Chinatown, the area inside of the city, and I found a street block that had all the elements of the city I was trying to make. So this blue nighttime sky, the bright office buildings, the yellow streetlights from underneath, car headlights driving, and being able to see these red neon signs as well, and what it looks like to have this crazier green building lighting. And I was able to capture everything I needed to create in a single video clip. And now I can see how the lens flares react as I pan my camera, and how big those lens flares are streaking from the streetlights themselves, and how bright the office building lights are inside of the building. We can just start to deconstruct this whole building and these references. That's really the point here, is to break them down, deconstruct these images, because the biggest difference I see between the good artists and the great artists that get brought back to studios and hired time and time again and are making those iconic shots that you recognize at the movie theater, is that good artists guess, great artists study. They find references and they study. They compare their work, their viewport, their final render, and they directly compare it to reference images, to real life photographs, and they don't stop tweaking it until it matches perfectly. And you need to study to notice the differences. So what it looked like for Godzilla versus Kong, and on this project as well, was going to real life reference images, finding Hong Kong at night in these foggy circumstances, trying to find the most cinematic version of Hong Kong, and then start to recreate that and just start to break down how light is being cast into the scene, how big the effect of this red neon sign is versus the blue neon signs, versus how that light is being cast onto the buildings. We're just starting to break this down at its core, and a big part of this is learning how to see. We're literally trying to train our eye at this point. That's really the biggest leaps I made in my career as a visual effects artist. Did not come from learning a brand new technical skill. It actually came from learning a new artistic skill. It was from learning how to see the world differently than I did. And you can literally feel it in your head. You can feel the neurons starting to connect and change together as you're leveling up. So I want to try to give you a little bit of this experience and kind of recreate what I went through in my first job in the industry. The first movie I ever worked on was Alien Covenant. This was one of the shots I finaled on that show. We actually take a look at some of these shots here. And this was, I had 8 months that I was working on the shot, starting as a complete beginner all the way to working on what I would still consider some pretty senior level shots. And I didn't start out that way. I really had to earn that, and I didn't get my best shots until the last 1 or 2 months. So for the first 4 or 5, I was sitting there struggling as a junior visual effects artist, trying to crack the code to how do I make my shots look better? How do I make my shots look like the senior level artists? And so one thing that's really cool, if you didn't know about this, about working at a visual effects studio, is that when you're working on a movie like Alien, you can literally you can open up any single visual effects shot in the entire movie and literally open up that script and see exactly what nodes went into making these types of shots. So early on, I would literally go to these senior level artists, open up their nuke scripts, copy all the nodes and paste it into my own shots, because I was like, dude, I gotta learn this stuff. I gotta see what these senior artists are doing. And I would start to go through and use the same exact setups, but even when I was using the same nodes, like the same technical setup, my shots weren't looking any better. I wasn't improving as an artist. And this was just starting to drive me absolutely insane, because I felt like I was trying harder than ever. I thought I was doing all the right things, focusing on the right areas, and I still was not able to get these shots looking good, and I wasn't able to prove to the supervisors that I'm capable of those senior level shots that I wanted to earn by the end of that show. So at a certain point, I was working on this shot, and I was like, dude, Emilio was sitting next to me. He was a senior level artist. He's actually a compositing supervisor on Lion King 2, just coming out. He's a VFX soup on that now, but I asked him at the time, he was just a senior, and I was like, dude, okay, I'm gonna fess up, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. I stole your shot. I copied every node from your shot. I pasted it into my script, and my shot still sucks, dude. What is wrong? Like, can you look at my shot and just roast me for 5 minutes? Tell me what I'm doing wrong, and just like, what are the nodes I should be using instead of these? And he's like, dude, you have it completely backwards. You're spending all this time talking about nodes and these technical setups. Let's take a step back and just talk about the artistic techniques. Let's talk about depth and how to build atmosphere in your shots. And I was like, dude, wait, what? What are you talking about? It's not some like Python code I need to enter into my script. It's art. What? After all this time, it's going back to the fundamentals. And he's like, yes, dude, you need to add depth into your shots. So this film was shot on location at Milford Sound in New Zealand. So this is a real physical location. It's a matte painting in the background here, but if we look ahead, this is the real life location. And I learned a lot by studying all of these different images and trying to understand how to add depth into my shots. So a key thing here is the challenge that we have as filmmakers and as people making pretty images on the internet is that somehow we need to convince the audience that they are not looking at a flat 2D image. We need to try to trick them into thinking they're looking at a gigantic 3D landscape and they're looking at the most depth imaginable. And even if they're not wearing 3D glasses, if we do our jobs right, it should literally feel like that, like the image extends into the background. And when you do all of these artistic techniques right, it will start to feel this way. So a cool thing that's happening here in real life that we can imitate as a real life or as a visual effects artist is the atmosphere and the depth. So a couple things to notice here. Look at how dark the shadows are close to us in the foreground on the screen left here versus how lifted in gray it is as we get further and further into the background. That's fog or atmosphere that is literally more of it is visible further away than what's close to us because there's more in between where the camera is and that landscape super far away. So that's why fog is able to literally tell us as an audience member how far away into the background something is. So if we add depth and fog and atmosphere, if we add fog and atmosphere, we will create depth. So that's the big takeaway here. The other takeaway is scale. So if we look at the clouds in this next shot here, look at how gigantic these clouds are, and they're intersecting with the different mountains, and it looks super cool. The fact that those clouds are intersecting with the mountains adds depth because it feels like something's in front of this cloud and something's behind that part of the mountain. So we get some separation between midground and background. But the key thing here, and it's super subtle, but if you can master this, your shots will start to look like your favorite movies, I swear. If you can actually start applying this to your work. Look at this cloud here and look at how big it is across this entire landscape. And now let's look all the way in the background, super far away into the distance. And on the screen, it's only a couple pixels now, and that cloud looks super far away. But something we need to notice here is that cloud is the same exact size in the 3D world. They're the same exact size, except one is much closer to the camera and the other is much further away. But the size of the cloud is the same. This is a super important thing to hold on to, because this is how we can tell when things are close to camera and when they're far away, is by changing the scale or the perceived scale of these objects. So in the 3D world, they're the same size, but we'll change the perceived scale by pushing it way further into the background. And when you get really good at this, and when you get really great at depth, you don't just start adding things into the background, you start adding things into the foreground, passing by that camera, and that could be smoke, it could be clouds, it could be embers, it could be whatever, but that's how you can start to really layer in depth, is by adding things close to camera, in the midground, and in the background all together. And if you sandwich that together, your 2D images will start to separate apart and start to resemble these 3D looking landscapes. Is that making sense? Does that click with y'all? Because this took me so much time to learn. Just a couple sentences that we went over here, but oh my goodness, this single concept has completely transformed my work. And if you look back at all of my shots, starting from Alien to today, they all are building depth in this exact way, by adding in clouds, by adding in fog, by adding in atmosphere into our shots, we're able to build a huge landscape and just make it feel larger than life. And that's what we're trying to do here with this blockbuster filmmaking idea, is just to make things feel larger than life, like the biggest, most cinematic version possible. So a lot of times I would do this with clouds. So this was kind of the big turning point on Godzilla versus Kong, is that I always had this trick in the back of my pocket to use cloud cards to build atmosphere in my shots. But as soon as I got to Godzilla versus Kong, I couldn't use clouds anymore. And I was like, oh crap, my number one trick, how am I gonna use it again? And there's like, I tried using it and the supervisor said, no, we cannot have clouds in this city. It just doesn't make any sense. I was like, please? He's like, no, straight up, no, we gotta find something else. So on this movie, I had to find a way to create depth and create atmosphere without using clouds and without texture. And so the solution I came up with on this movie was to create cloud cards. Was that instead of using pictures of clouds, I could use these pictures that resemble the soft fall off of volumetric fog, I'll show you them in just a second, to recreate depth and atmosphere and push the art direction of my shots. So in this example here, look at the red and blue and purple neon signs casting volumetric fog and light into that fog. That's what we're gonna try to recreate by taking a simple blurred out texture just like this. I'm gonna multiply it by the color orange and yellow. I'm basically just gonna tint it to be the color of the different light sources in our city. So towards the street level, that's gonna be orange firelights under his feet, and it's gonna be yellow street lamps underneath, like around where the where the cars are around the city, like we saw in that reference. And we're just gonna start placing these couple cards and start to build up atmosphere and start to create different layers of depth by placing them in the midground, foreground, and background. And literally, I would add in 50 or 60 or 70 of these in a single shot. That was true on Godzilla versus Kong, but what's even better is I could do it in real time right here inside of Unreal in the viewport. So I'm just working on the final result. So we have those red neon signs. I could super quickly pair up a red glow card with those red neon signs. Or if we had this storefront, this yellow light that's just pouring out of it, I could tint a glow card yellow and change the entire foreground there, and that would help me backlight all of our characters, so we get these nice silhouettes of all of the characters running for their life in the foreground. And I could even pair these up to the explosions and the impacts of Godzilla's feet. So I added in an orange cloud card that literally animated up bigger and smaller, timed to the impacts of Godzilla's feet as he's stomping through the city. So it's simple keyframes. It's literally 3 keyframes on all these different animations, but they add up. They add up really quick. And all these small little depth cues and little ways that we're adding in depth and atmosphere into our scene are going to make our scene look better. Another huge trick that we would use all the time at a visual effects studio and on these movies is using matte painting. So a lot of people think they have to build out every single 3D model in their scene. And you definitely want to have great 3D models. I also used a couple kit bash models to build out the rest of the city, but I didn't really rely on the kit bash buildings all that much here. Most of the time actually was spent looking at these images of Hong Kong, and again, just like look at how much we'd have to build. If you had to recreate this yourself in 3D, just imagine trying to break this down and reconstructing it building by building. Like this would take forever. It would take months for you to actually do this yourself. So we can't really do that. I knew with the time that I had, there was no way I was going to be able to build an entire city like this from scratch. So as I was looking at this as I was looking at this image and all these buildings paired together, I started to think, what if instead of recreating all of these as 3D assets inside of our scene, what if I just used a matte paint? I just took this exact image and I just placed it into my own 3D environment. So instead of just duplicating this, I could just take the literal image, this actual image, and make it my entire background. And the idea is that's gotta look more realistic, right? That's gotta look more photorealistic if it's from a photograph. So that's why it's such a powerful technique, is that instead of inventing everything yourself, we can just use photographs and literally drag and drop them into the viewport. You just have to make them an unlit material for all of you Unreal folks out there. It's the only special thing we're doing here is making it an unlit material. And then we're able to drag and drop these images in the background. And it really is this easy. And it's super creative. You just worry about the compositions. You're thinking like a filmmaker, not like you have to spend months constructing this city. So we're able to spend all our time in the fun creative zone being the filmmakers, and you can really push these images. Like so many of my environments, the entire background is just an image instead of building it out. And the foggier your environment is, the better and easier it is to pull off this sort of technique, because you can do some magic trickery to kind of blend those edges together in a really cool way. So that's what it looked like to use map paintings on this. And to take that one step further, I also use photographs to create the office buildings. So a cool technique in Unreal are called decals. So if you've ever played Call of Duty, I got my intervention sound effect here. If you ever played Call of Duty and you shot at a concrete wall, what happens? You see that bullet wall, you see that bullet hole on that wall, and that's a decal. That's like a little texture that they slap on the wall dynamically at runtime. And we can use that same exact technique in our own CG scenes by projecting a texture of a real building, not a bullet hole, but a real building, onto our kit bash buildings here. And because it's a decal, we can dynamically move it and stretch it around like you'd be able to in your scene. But this is an Unreal only tool set that's super, super nice. And I build so many environments relying on decals in this way. And I remember being on set for Avatar, and we were like scrambling to add in detail at the last second to improve those environments all the way to the last second before they go to press record and record all these final shots. And we would just constantly be adding in 50, 100 different decals in a single scene. And Unreal is just great at taking the workload. It's super dynamic, super easy, and it's very hard to overload Unreal. You can use a ton of decals without overloading your system. So I love that technique to build environments a lot faster. But does that give you a couple ideas to build better environments faster? Hopefully you learned a couple new things, whether you're a beginner or especially for those of you folks that have made a couple environments already. I hope those glow cards really give you a concrete path to add a lot more depth and atmosphere. And I would implore you, look at senior artists, look at senior compositors, senior lighters, senior effects artists, look at ILM's reels, and look at how they build depth and atmosphere into their shots. You will not miss a single shot. Every single one of them has these layers in there. You might not have noticed it before, but your brain did. And I hope that really helps. You see things a little bit differently by the end of this. That's really my goal for the end of this. Is the only way for us to become better artists is to change, to literally have a better creative eye than we did yesterday, for real. And if you haven't had that happen today, then keep digging. Find better resources, because whether it's from me or someone else, that's the way you're going to improve your visual effects. Is the technical side is important, yes, and obviously we went through a lot of technical stuff too, but the artistic side is far, far more important in the end. So hopefully that helps you with some ideas to push your environments even further. And our last chapter here for the Godzilla breakdown is how we can talk about lights, cameras, and action to build out better looking visual effects, and hopefully pass on a couple more Hollywood visual effects techniques that you can use as well. You guys excited? Let's jump into it. All right, so a lot of people they beat me to it. They say, dude, it's Unreal Engine. It's gotta look like a video game. And then hopefully this Godzilla project was kind of the answer back to that, to say, okay, come on, it doesn't have to look like a video game. Maybe people just aren't working with these renders correctly. So how can we avoid this? How can we make our renders not look like a video game, not look like a PS3 game, but instead look like your favorite Hollywood films? So how do we do that? One way that is good to know is Niagara effects. So Niagara is great inside of Unreal Engine to add dynamic particle effects like muzzle flashes and spark impacts into your scene. So that's what we did dynamically in Unreal Engine for this project. That's how we did the impacts from the helicopters and from the guns themselves, is by mapping them out in 3D space, and literally just like Call of Duty, made this whole particle system. And again, that tutorial exists on the channel, so check that out later if you want. But the real critical skill is not inside of Unreal Engine. It's actually after we leave Unreal Engine. And this is a step that most artists skip. And it happens to be my very favorite in the entire visual effects pipeline because it is compositing. It's what I did on Hollywood Visual Effects. It's what I did in my career at Visual Effects Studios. And there are a lot of great old school visual effects tricks that we can apply to our Unreal renders to make them look so much better without spending a bunch of time to apply them. So that's what I want to focus on today is what are the few things we can do to get the biggest result. So let's take a look at this breakdown here and how we were able to go from the video game look to adding in different lights and stock footage critically, that's the critical piece here, to take our shots to the next level. So these are a couple breakdowns of what we're going to dive into. And the critical thing here is we're starting with our Unreal renders and we're adding in real life footage. That is the critical thing here that so many people don't do this. They're using a video game engine, so they use the video game tools, and on the surface, this makes sense. But if you're trying to make photorealistic renders, which I think a lot of you are, then the best way to do it is, again, by using real life footage. I know we're in a video game, but let's make our lives easier. Let's use a couple of shortcuts by using real life footage instead of these CG looking particle systems. So the rain was a huge component of this entire sequence, but I did render out some Niagara rain, but I ended up replacing all of it in favor of using real life stock footage. So let's show up the rain really quick, and then we'll kind of walk through how we also treated the lighting breakdown. But yeah, so we took the shots themselves, but then I remapped the camera inside of a software called Nuke, which is basically After Effects, but nobody uses After Effects on Hollywood movies. They use Nuke instead of After Effects. I found that out the hard way, but truly nobody uses After Effects on a real Hollywood production. It just never ever happens that way. So it's all done using Nuke primarily. And what we can do inside of there is we can take real life footage of rain and combine it with our Unreal renders, our depth renders, to create really realistic looking storms. And so I also did this with Godzilla's breath and with dust clouds like building up and rushing down the city streets around Godzilla and rushing past the camera. And by setting up this stock footage in the real 3D space, I'll show you how we did this in just a second. We'll go into the 3D viewport inside of Unreal. But this is how it's done. It's layer by layer is deciding what's gonna look the best out of Unreal and what's gonna look the best with stock footage, and then combining those two together. And so we can do that using Nuke. And the big thing we're trying to do here is create imperfections. That's the strong point. So the way we're gonna do this is just by exporting our camera. So we need to mimic that same camera move, like our 3D camera is moving in 3D space. We need to be able to recreate that inside of Nuke. So all I do is right click on my camera, export that inside of Unreal, and I'm just gonna render out a depth pass. Don't worry about getting bogged down with this. You can always pause this and come back later. This is just how I render out the actual depth pass there. But the important thing to look at here is what we do with this camera. So what we're gonna do is now we have our camera that's recreating that camera floating around our city, looking at Godzilla. And then using an image plane node, I can take these sparks, that spark element I have, and I can start to place that in 3D space right underneath Godzilla's foot. So I can find out that's 3,000 centimeters away, right under Godzilla's foot. Let's place it right there. And then let's also remap our depth pass so we can literally start to say everything that's in front of these buildings is black, everything behind these buildings is white. And let's start to create this really nice gradient of depth and build up like the same exact word. We're finding additional ways to add depth and atmosphere into our shot by taking this dust cloud element and spreading it through the depth of all these different city blocks underneath Godzilla himself by remapping that depth pass to integrate the two together. You can do the same thing with Godzilla's breath. So we just found this steam element, this little puff of steam. We slowed it down to like 50%. We got this depth pass pulled around Godzilla's face so that we could just isolate that part so it looks like it's coming right out of the jowls of Godzilla himself. And that was enough to create the illusion that that smoke is really coming out of Godzilla's mouth and that he's breathing fire and steam into the city street. So that's how we broke it down, is just a couple extra layers through the sparks, through these other extra elements, and by using image planes in Nuke, we're able to add these elements together. So yeah, that's Nuke, and that was really the recipe that we applied to every single one of these shots. Whether it was the rain or the explosions, this explosion here was made using stock footage. So this is available on compositingacademy.com if you want those explosions. Those explosions are literally free to download if you want to take those for a spin and use them on your own projects. That's over at compositingacademy.com. But yeah, that's what we were able to do, is like free explosions, free assets, compositing them together inside of Nuke. And that way we're able to take a really great base out of Unreal, but take it to that next level, add in those Hollywood level effects, add in that atmosphere and those glows so it really starts to come to life. And then the very last step that I apply to all of my shots and all of my sequences now is my one-click template. This basically is all of the surface imperfections and the type of, every time we're trying to recreate the lens imperfections on a Hollywood film, it's this checklist of the 12 things you do every single time. I wanted to make one template once and for all. And so now I use this on my own shots where I can click and drag a couple sliders like diffusion and grain and chromatic aberration and vignetting and lens flares, things like that, all in one place so I can recreate those imperfections of a real camera lens. That's all done in one step with the one-click compositing template. But does that make sense? Does that at least show you a little bit behind the curtain as to how we're able to elevate our Unreal renders? That is the secret over and over again. It's reusing real-life footage and creating depth in our renders. These are the basics, but I swear, I'm trying to accomplish this in every single shot. There's not a single shot I'm not trying to add stock footage, and there's not a single shot I'm not trying to build extra layers of depth just to make our shots look even bigger, even better, and yeah, just bigger like it is in the movie theaters. That's really what we're going for here. But yeah, that is what it took to bring this whole sequence together. Was a lot of compositing, but also just doing a lot of the basics done right. A lot of this is just doing simple vehicle animations, simple light animations, doing it together in this unique combination. But you know, the basics are all there and they're available to all of us. And that's why I wanted to lay out this entire process from that original idea all the way to finished film, because it shouldn't be hard to make films in Unreal. I know it can feel super daunting when you're on the outside, but you guys feel a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable about what it would take to make films in Unreal? Hopefully that's a yes by now. Hopefully we've progressed and we've learned a little bit more. We learned how to build environments as well. Some cool tricks to add depth and add real life footage like matte paintings and decals to build cities even faster. And obviously we started out going from idea to final film by making a storyboard inside of Unreal Engine. So that is now my complete new workflow for filmmaking inside of Unreal. Let's take one last look at the finished film, and hopefully now we can start to look at how, my hope is now, my dad was, to tell a really quick story, my dad was a magician early on, which was just super hilarious to me. So magic always felt really real to me. And when I heard of ILM, you've heard of the studio behind Star Wars, behind your favorite movies, behind The Mandalorian, behind, I mean, all of the biggest, Jurassic Park, all these great movies. ILM stands for Industrial Light and Magic. And their first logo was literally a magician opening his hat and casting a spell. So it might sound corny as hell, I don't really care, but to me, there's always been this magic component to visual effects for real. Like I feel the movie magic in the air. But one thing I hope that you can see when we rewatch this sequence right now is, just like a magician, after you reveal the secrets, the trick is suddenly not as special as it once was, but it's also even more special. Now that you understand how it was made and all of the little decisions that went into it, I hope you can start to look at it in a different way, and your creative eye has changed today. That was my goal from the beginning, is that you can start to look at this differently, start to notice what I'm doing, the techniques I'm applying, and start to identify those and use them in your own work. So if you guys are ready, let's jump in and take a look at the Godzilla short film, the cinematic, in Unreal 5. Let's do this. All right. Oh, you know what? False alarm one more time. We're gonna get the right one in here. I gotta make sure. Okay, there we go. Before we started, I tricked you. I know I tricked you. Let's play this once and for all. The final film right here. So there we go. That is the Godzilla film in its final form. Hopefully now you can look at it a little bit differently. And my question for all of you is that you learned something new by the end of this. Is that true? If you could leave a thumbs up if you learned something new, just to know that, hey, some of this is working, we're progressing, we're becoming better filmmakers, better visual effects artists by the end of this, and that hopefully that we're delivering on our promises here. I want to make sure this is worth it because I know that these lessons took me so long to learn. Hopefully, we spent some time tonight to learn it, compressed it into a short amount of time. I know it's these always end up going a little bit long, but we learned something new by the end of this. Just to kind of wrap this into one big bow, to just let us know that we can all do this, right? Can you guys take a screenshot? Can you screenshot your viewport? Can you start mapping out one shot after the other inside your Unreal viewport? Because if you have free characters and free animations, you can just drag them in, start screenshotting this together. If you can make one single shot, one visual effects shot, then you can start making your own action scenes. It all starts with those screenshots, then going one shot at a time and assembling a full film together. That's really all it takes. So if you can start out by making screenshots, then I'm telling you, you don't need to be an animator. You can download all these character models and start making films yourself. That's exactly what I've done. And if you look back at the channel, you'll start to see that this is absolutely the evolution I've been going on. I hope you can start to look back at all those videos with a different lens on why we were making those creative decisions. Because the bottom line is with the skills that you've learned today, especially with depth, especially with using real life images to make your shots look better, is that you can use this to make your first demo reel. And if you do that, then honestly, you can work on stylized projects, you can work on photorealistic projects. Again, it's all the same art fundamentals here that we're trying to accomplish. So whether it's making freelance projects or animated cinematics, or you're trying to make stuff that could go on Netflix, like Radiation, or from Love, Death, and Robots, again, it's all the same stuff. It's all using Unreal Engine 5. And yeah, it also is, it's the same for virtual production as well. So that's really what we're trying to do here. And ultimately, if you can learn it for filmmaking, you can learn it for virtual production, and you can use that to land that job. I really do stand by that. But how many of you are a little bit overwhelmed? I mean, I heard last week a lot of people were saying that they felt that they needed a tutorial for the tutorial, and because I've learned Unreal as well, just like you, or maybe, you know, starting out, it feels daunting, it feels ambitious. I totally get it if it feels a little bit overwhelming. So is it cool if I go over a special offer I'm putting together just for this weekend? I'm doing a little 4th of July sale for Unreal for VFX. I got a couple cool discounts. I'm actually running Unreal Fundamentals at the lowest price ever this weekend. Is that cool if I kind of walk through that just to show you what we're doing over at unrealforvfx.com? Because that's basically what this is. If you know, hey, I want to make films in Unreal, it's becoming clearer, but you're a little bit worried about getting bogged down on the technical side of learning Unreal. The bottom line is a lot of people can get sidetracked when they're learning this, but complete beginners can learn Unreal Engine 5. Like I said, Zalushi, I say Zalushi, that's his YouTube channel, at Zalushi, but Jonas is the perfect example. It might seem like this dude, he's a VR YouTuber, it might seem like he was a super technical guy, but he never made films, and or not like you know, cinematics, cutscenes, or, you know, like he would make YouTube vlogs, but he always wanted to make things that felt like movies. So what he started to do after taking Unreal Fundamentals was he literally took his VR YouTube channel and started making his own cutscenes in cinematics himself so that he could really become the main characters of all of these games. It's super, super cool, and he's able to take it to a pretty photorealistic level, especially considering he's also doing it on a YouTube timetable. Dude, I was super impressed when he sent this over, not just recreating some of the stuff we showed him, but creating something new and creating his own Star Wars films. So he told me that he knew next to nothing about Unreal Engine 5 when he was first starting out. But after going through this, he was able to gain the skills, build out scenes, and render cinematics for his YouTube channel completely from scratch. And yeah, so this was further from that YouTube video. I know he's working on some really cool stuff and making a lot more lightsaber battles. But even just to get his first projects out, he's able to really make something brand new, tell his own stories, and not just replicate what he saw out there on the internet. I think that's the biggest problem I do see with YouTube out there is a lot of people, you can find one big tutorial, you can follow along with it and create that same castle environment that everyone else has made for their first project in Unreal. But if you want to get a job in Unreal, if you want to get freelance work, you need to stand out with your projects. You can't just be recreating tutorials. So that is the biggest problem is YouTube is great. I think it's best to learn the one-off features from YouTube. Like you can learn, oh, look at the brand new feature that came out for Unreal 5.4, but it's still very challenging to learn the workflows and how the whole system feeds together into just making those final renders and making final films. And that's what I struggled with the most early on. I started early with Unreal 4 as I was trying to piece it together, and there was really no path ahead. And I think why I saw a lot of artists fail and why I gave up the first time I learned Unreal, the very first time I gave up, was because of this. It was because I was expecting the learning curve to be really short at the beginning. I learn a bunch of stuff and it becomes easy over time. But what I actually found was that I hit this divot. I learned a bunch early on. I followed some of those early tutorials that are click by click, and you do understand how to recreate what someone's done. But I found when I moved on to make my own films and my own projects that I was actually more confused when I first started because none of it was clicking together. I learned this part from this tutorial, but I didn't really understand how Unreal Engine worked. And this was just this really hard, it was this difficult problem to untwine. And I was, what I finally started to understand is that by the end, I didn't really understand Unreal Engine until I learned the game dev side of Unreal. And don't worry, you don't have to be a game developer already. You don't have to be a coder or a programmer or anything like that. I am not a programmer either. I just learned it in the wrong order, and that's why it took so much more time. It took 3 times longer simply because it was in the wrong order. And if I had just learned a couple simple game development concepts early on and created a simple game, not something crazy, not making our own Fortnite or Call of Duty, but make something simple like a Pac-Man game, just to understand how it works, suddenly everything else gets unlocked so much faster if we just focus on eliminating the confusion around that game development stuff early. So that was really the thing that clicked with me early on, and I just see this time and time again that so many beginners get stuck and fail and give up right before they're about to crack it open and understand it and make that first film. They stop right at the finish line. So if I can give one piece of advice, this is why most people mess up. It's because they're trying to learn a game engine and they just kind of have the false misconceptions at this early stage. So I tried to visualize this to make it easier to understand why this is a problem. I call this the skill bridge. The basic idea is that half of this is our game dev skills and half of this is our VFX skills. And the bottom line is that you need to know all of these skills to cross. Now, each of these skills is very easy to learn on their own. But the problem is a lot of people learn a little bit about blueprints or a little bit about rendering and a little bit about comp, but they don't learn everything together. And the problem is if you don't learn each one of the steps, you can't cross over the bridge. You need to understand how it all flows together. That's why the workflows are so important. So again, it's not that this is so complicated. The order is the hard part. And that's why it was so funny. When I first got the job offer for Avatar: The Last Airbender, I was decent in Unreal. I wasn't great. And so I never want to show up unprepared. I ended up taking off of work. I literally quit my job as soon as I got that offer. I said, I can't do this anymore. I got to use Unreal on set. I got to do this. It's just the life's calling. But I needed to prepare more. So I took 2 months off, not taking a paycheck, just preparing myself so I could actually show up and troubleshoot effectively live on the day. Because it's one of those high pressure situations. When you're on a film set and something goes wrong in Unreal, guess who has to solve it? It's you. And that was me on set there. So it was a lot to learn at once. But the funny part about that whole experience is that I took those 2 months off to learn this by myself and put myself through the ringer, read through the whole documentation, did all the projects that they suggest for game developers and just learned it the hard way, went the game developer path so I could just learn it once and for all. And then finally, what was so ironic is that when I showed up on set on Avatar, is that when I could just talk to other visual effects artists that had done it themselves, that have gone through this path, I probably learned more in that first week on set, working next to the other artists, next to the supervisors, than the 2 months I struggled learning this on my own. So that's why, honestly, after going through that experience, I wanted to leave more roadmaps, leave all the frameworks I learned for the people that were in my shoes early on, because guys, this shouldn't take 6 months or a year of spinning your wheels, trying to learn it and struggling through it. It should be fast, it should be fun, and there should be an easy way. So that's what I tried to do with Unreal Fundamentals, is tie these two together while not getting bogged down by the game development side. Focus on connecting this bridge, learning all the skills in the right order, and unlocking real-time rendering forever. And that means you can practice filmmaking without a camera, without renting camera lenses. And if you've been down that road, I've basically made all the mistakes. I've paid for crazy expensive rentals, paid for red cameras that you're spending a couple grand to have it for the week, and you don't have it afterwards. You can practice big budget Hollywood filmmaking without renting anything, without hiring out any crew, without paying for actors, without paying for locations or hotels or meals or any of that good stuff. We can just get right to the fun, creative filmmaking side using Unreal Engine. Let me ask you a question. If all you needed was just 30 minutes a day to learn Unreal Engine, would you want to get started? Because at the beginning, I always assumed it would take such a long time to just dive in and actually learn all this stuff because it seemed intimidating. But what I tried to do is make that easy path and make it so literally anyone could do this and learn all the skills for Unreal filmmaking in just 30 minutes a day. So you could do it after work or before work or on the weekend and actually fit this into your schedule and not just keep putting it off for another couple weeks or a couple months. And funny enough, we're halfway through the year. I know a lot of you probably in this chat at the beginning of this year were like, oh, I should probably learn Unreal. I should level up my skills and all that good stuff. And I get it. Life gets in the way, things get put off. But here we are together on this cool weekend. We got a super special deal. So yeah, would love to make this easy for you and help you practice filmmaking using Unreal, making some really cool shots. And what is super cool to me about a lot of the student work is not just people copying tutorials one-to-one. They're actually able to make their own films, make their own pieces for their own demo reels. And that's why we've had a lot of people get hired after going through our training. So that's the bottom line, is it can help you start freelancing it, and it can help you start working on set. Like I said, it's the same exact skill set here. What we're gonna help you do is focus in on building a demo reel. Because again, that is what I've found time and time again. If you wanna get hired on the big movies, doesn't matter about those pieces of paper or where you went to school or where you trained. It just matters about having a killer demo reel. That's what it takes to work on the big movies. And that's what it's gonna take to land your next dream job. So hopefully I made all these mistakes so you don't have to. You can skip through the 2 to 3 years that it took me to get to this spot today. And you can use all my cheat sheets, all of my frameworks, all of my templates I've ever made and master Unreal filmmaking in those 30 minutes a day. So the way we do this is through Unreal Fundamentals. So this is available this weekend at unrealforvfx.com/go. That's your super secret special link for this this weekend. And what we did is we try to solve every possible problem that you might ever have as you're trying to learn Unreal Engine. There were so many small roadblocks that came across my path. There were lots of presets I ended up making to make my life easier. And I don't want you to reinvent the wheel. I want you to have everything that I've built to speed up my filmmaking workflow so you can start with all the advantages that I have today and not have to reinvent it. So that's all the bonuses. We'll get into all the bonuses inside of here. But the punchline is we used War of Being as a production case study to really look at how do you make animated films with characters inside of Unreal Engine. This was a project I made with just a small team of 5 people, all from scratch. We're gonna use that as a case study, but we're also gonna build 4 different environments from scratch. So literally from a blank scene, from an open viewport with nothing in it, we'll go to build scenes from The Dark Knight and from Raya and the Last Dragon and learn all of the virtual production techniques that I use on set and how we can master those for filmmaking. So we'll go through the artistic techniques and we'll definitely go through the technical side, but the key takeaway here is really to focus in on making the artistic side easy and accessible and fun. So we don't get bogged down and lost in documentation hell like everyone else does. We want to keep it fun. We want to focus on how this works with filmmaking, not how it plugs in to game engines. So don't spend the years trying to learn all this stuff yourself. If you want the shortcut, I mean, you also totally can. I totally get it. Like I said, I was self-taught. That's why it took me 2 to 3 years to learn all of it and piece it together. But if you don't want to go through that, you want that shortcut. We've helped a lot of people do this, 500 students at this point, and lots of beginners who never touched 3D in their life, but also a lot of people that are migrating from other 3D software into Unreal. People like Mark Jason, who use it to just make his own music videos. He's actually a DJ primarily. He ended up using Unreal Fundamentals to make his own music videos. He actually thought he told me that he never thought he'd be able to understand anything in Unreal. And through this, he was able to make his own environments. And just completely, he was not a technical guy, never thought he would be using game engines for anything, but was able to make his own music videos. So this really does work at every skill level. We've helped a lot of people from all different walks of life. Some people in their teenage years as well, like we've had parents who are like, dude, can my son take this? The answer is yes. Like, I first learned After Effects at 12, and I think that's why I was able to just jump right into this stuff early. But whether you're 13 or whether you're 57 and looking for that career change, it's the same skill set, and this is available to anyone out there. It's not limited by what you know before today. It's limited by what you're willing to learn. So the big thing here is I did have two choices though. When I was putting this together, it was either do what a lot of other people do. I took every Unreal course out there when I was learning. A lot of people had these 3-hour courses where they teach you some of these things. They teach you like just how to render out your stuff or just about metahumans, but they didn't piece it all together. And I just constantly found myself frustrated by not understanding the network and the web of all these things. It just, even though I would learn more things, everything still felt more and more scattered. So I didn't want to make something short and cheap, which I definitely could have done and solve like 1 or 2 of your problems. But I wanted to just fix this once and for all, make the ultimate filmmaking toolkit for myself 3 years ago when I was just starting out, so that you could just get to the answers. Just use the presets that are gonna work from day one. But obviously I had to spend a lot more time to put that together, to create the project files, to create all that training. So it is a little bit more of an investment than most other courses, but at the same time, it's because I've done it before, I've been where you are, I know that all the cheat sheets that I'm about to show you here are gonna solve the problems that you have ahead. So this is Unreal Fundamentals, and what we do is we teach you how to make your own action scenes in just 21 days, from a complete beginner to Unreal Filmmaker in just 21 days. Now, normally full price on our website outside of this starts at $597. That's what most students end up paying for Unreal Fundamentals. But for everyone here that stuck around, is willing to put in the extra time, this weekend only through July 4th, we're going to be running this for $200 off. So you can get Unreal Fundamentals and all the bonuses, all the cheat sheets I'm about to show you here for just $397, or you can get started for just 99 bucks. So I understand a lot of people are also students, they're in between jobs, it's a difficult time in the industry. Whatever's gonna work for you, it's $397 or 4 total payments of 99 bucks. So 99 bucks today, or so 99 bucks today, and then 3 payments of 99 bucks for the next 3 months. So it's just a monthly payment of 99 bucks. And this expires on Sunday night. So if you want to check this out, if you already know that, hey, this is for me, sign me up. You can go to unrealforvfx.com/go. I'll actually put this in the chat right here really quick, just to post that there so that everyone can access that link. That's going to be, and let me just verify that that's working before we continue here. But yeah, that's going to be available for this entire weekend, or until we run out of 50 seats, whichever comes first. We normally don't run discounts on this, but for this weekend, you can get started for just $397, and we have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can get started today, figure out if it's right for you, and let us know. If anything's wrong, just send us an email. You'll get a full refund within 30 days. That's how we like to do it, because we don't want to hold anyone back. We just want to help you get to where you want to go in your journey, and we want to make it easy. But I also want to pile on some really cool bonuses. I know you guys stuck around to the end, so I want to add in some special bonuses just for you folks here on the Godzilla Masterclass that everyone else won't have access to over this weekend. This is just for the people watching this right now. So we have Unreal Fundamentals. Like I said, you can get that over at unrealforvfx.com/go for just $397, not for full price. You can get a discount over the weekend, but I'm gonna add on a couple cool bonuses here. So like I said, there's a lot of small skills you need to master. They're pretty easy to learn, but if you don't learn them together and in the right order, you can really struggle as you're going. So I wanted to just simplify this entire process. And for some of these skills, I just wanted to eliminate what you have to learn and just give you the presets so you can get all of the things that I'm doing on my renders without figuring it out yourself, basically. So I made some really cool bonus templates and tutorials here to make filmmaking really easy and turn the whole process into drag and drop presets and to really simple click-by-click presets that anyone can use at any skill level, so you don't have to be some game dev mastermind to figure this out. You can use my presets. I show you exactly how to use them step by step, and they make the whole process a lot more fun, a lot more simple. So one of these presets is our lightning fast render presets. So instead of looking at the pixelated screen of death, we can get the full experience of real-time rendering, and then our renders can pop out of Unreal in real time. Those 30-second clips should take 30 seconds to render. They shouldn't take you hours and hours to render. You shouldn't have to worry about overnight renders at all. We'll give you the best presets, and if you're looking for EXRs and AOVs, you're looking for the technical presets, those are in here too. If you're a beginner, don't worry about that, but we have the full, this is the VFX Studio pipeline ready presets that we have here. They've been battle tested on real productions on my own shorts, and we know these work, and I update them when I learn anything new. So that also goes for our one-click compositing template. So this is the other bonus that we're throwing in as well, is that same template I use on the Dune project, on the Godzilla project, that I use on all of my freelance and commercial work, is that one-click compositing template, and you can use it on your own shots. So this is literally a couple sliders to get all of the Hollywood visual effects that I'd normally apply on my own shots at a visual effects studio. You can apply it on your own work to really help yourself stand out. That is our one-click template. And then on the technical side, we made materials and blueprints super, super easy. We compiled all of our biggest lessons into simple copy and paste cheat sheets. So you can use all of the best nodes and setups for materials. You don't have to guess. You can just literally copy the best setups from us and from our material cheat sheet and from our blueprints for beginners framework, so that you can jump right into using materials and blueprints in a beginner-friendly way and a filmmaking-centric way. That's the key thing here, is not to use this the way game developers do, but to use blueprints the way filmmakers do. So that's what we do here to add extra stock footage into Unreal. So we added really cool spark effects into War of Being and also into our dogfight sequence, which we made before. But that is the power of blueprints. You can really use it to extend the abilities of Unreal Engine, use it to create virtual production cameras, like motion capture cameras, and even cloud cards to make artist-friendly tools that can help you create massive environments way, way faster. We go through all of that. We have an entire chapter dedicated just to blueprints and to go over that PDF to really teach anyone, whether you're at the beginning of your journey or you just are fuzzy, you're at the end, but you don't understand how it clicks for filmmaking. We'll help connect all the dots for you there. The last critical skill is filmmaking. So that is the one thing we focus on at the end. We teach you the basics, but then we make our own films. So we go through War of Being, we use it as a production case study, show you exactly how to apply motion capture workflows to your own projects. I go through the exact workflow, how we did it on War of Being, how you can do it yourself. And I also show you the free character, free animation workflow. So if you don't have pre-existing characters, you don't have animations, we'll build our own lightsaber battle using free characters from Mixamo.com and tie them together so you can create your own fight scenes, your own fight choreography from scratch using free assets and free animations. That's all using this right here. That's what we cover in chapter 11. And what's been so cool about Unreal Fundamentals is that a lot of our students aren't just copy and pasting some old tutorials. They're actually being able to create their own ideas from scratch. So like I said, Zalushi was able to make his own Star Wars films. Alicio was able to make his own war scenes, and Felipe was able to make his own fantasy sequences. So we've really been able to have people take their own ideas, bring them to life, and also recreate their own favorite movies. So Jay Lee was a student that recreated Blade Runner, made some really awesome shots for his demo reel that helped him send out his application to a bunch of different folks because he had some actual, some great visual effect shots on his demo reel. So that's really what we're trying to help everyone do here, is come out of this with a bunch of presets so you don't have to do all this by yourself, figuring it out from scratch. We'll give you all the presets to be filmmaker ready. And that's our lightning fast presets, the one-click template, blueprints for beginners, our materials cheat sheet. We even have a beginner's glossary and a beginner's hotkey framework, which we're just throwing in there. Those are really, really fun. And you get all those extra blueprints and templates along with Unreal Fundamentals. That is everything you're seeing here. That's all of the extra project files. And yeah, we easily could have charged extra for all these crazy bonuses, and honestly, just that one-click template alone, like that's my exact compositing pipeline in a single node as a supervisor. That's the same exact setup I would use. get that completely free along with everything else. This is all included today over at unrealforvfx.com/go. But we're also going to throw in a couple extra bonuses. So I want to really focus in on how we can help you build a demo reel fast. The best way is to get you right into the filmmaking parts of Unreal, is to build an action scene yourself. So the best way is by just giving you models and planes that you can make animations with on your own. So what if you could use the same exact plane model we used in Godzilla and use it for your own projects? This fully rigged plane where the cockpit is fully rigged, the propellers, the wings, the rudders, everything like that, you can literally drag and drop into your own scenes and start creating your own dogfight from scratch. This is what we've just updated Unreal Fundamentals with in Chapter 12. Chapter 12 covers how to make your own dogfight inside of Unreal. You get the plane model for free. We'll show you how to add the explosions, the effects. I go through my entire filmmaking camera workflow, the same exact pipeline I used on Godzilla. We go through all of it so you can actually build a really amazing, compelling demo reel piece by the end of this training. That's the entire goal of this, is to reverse engineer that demo reel at the end. And so yeah, that's fully rigged. Obviously, if you want to do this yourself, you need to hire a person to model this from scratch, to make all the materials from scratch, to rig it, to import it to Unreal, to make the control rigs. We did all of that for you, and then we even included an entire bonus chapter, which is an additional 2 hours focused all in on how to make this scene look awesome. That's included as a complete bonus on top of everything else that we covered today. To make it even better, I wanted to make something really cool and give away the project files behind my Dune in 24 Hours Unreal project. So if you've ever wanted to go inside of Dune and see exactly how I made this Dune environment in just 24 hours, you can now download this environment full with camera animations and the full animated sequence, and all the way including the animated ornithopters. You can actually get the rigs of these planes, of the ornithopters themselves, so you can create your own action scenes inside the world of Dune if you sign up this weekend. So we're gonna just totally include this project file completely for free along with everything else if you wanna sign up today. So that is, you'll also learn how I'm building environments at that virtual production standard. It's a super performant environment. It would literally run on a virtual production stage, and you can see exactly how I did it step by step and break it down and use it to make your own action scenes yourself. So yeah, that alone, I had to pay for the ornithopter model. We had to rig it and get that taken care of. Literally had those taken off of Turbo Squid so that we had the full rights to those models. So that cost us a bunch of money, and then obviously I spent all the time to put that together. We're not going to charge you for any of that. We're just going to throw it in because we want you to have the best resources available so you can just jump into the fun filmmaking side of Unreal. So if you ever want to animate your own Dune action scene, this is the way to do it. Just sign up this weekend and you'll get that project file completely for free along with everything else. And to make it even better, we also are starting to develop our Discord community. So we have a private Discord. It is not public. We do not have anything that's just available to the public. It's just for students of Unreal Fundamentals. And what's super cool about this community is that we're really trying to use it as a way to give students feedback on their own work, to help you with troubleshooting so you're not stuck on your own as you're progressing through Unreal. You actually have a community of people that have done this before, that have been in your shoes, that have gone through this training and can help you through any problem that you have. And then every Wednesday, we have weekly feedback sessions. So you can meet with me, you can submit your work and ask for feedback, and I'll go through your work and literally give you creative feedback on your own shots. I'm doing this because that's exactly what I always wanted as a junior in the industry, as someone on the outside trying to get in. So that is what we are doing inside the Discord, and it's also a great place to crew up, to find other animators, other environment artists, other Unreal filmmakers just like you, so you can collaborate on cool projects together. There's a lot of great stuff going on in the Discord there. I see a lot of people doing these paid communities, sticking $50 a month, $100 a month for this. If you're a student, you know, we take our job as coaches super seriously. At the end of the day, I just want to actually see you pull it off, to make that demo reel that gets you hired, and pass on the lessons I've learned along the way. So we want to help you be there every step of the way. We don't charge anything extra for any of these bonuses that you're seeing here. It's all included over this weekend if you want to sign up for Unreal Fundamentals. So it's not going to cause some crazy price tag. I get it. I was a self-taught artist. I started here on YouTube. I dropped out of college. I know that we're all in tough spots right now. We just want to make this work, but we also want to make our dreams come true, like for real. That's where I was at the start of this as well. So you can get everything we saw today for just $397, or you can use our payment plan and get started for just $99 over at unrealforvfx.com/go. So that is all that you'll get over this weekend, just $397, or get started on our payment plan for just $99. So we'll run this until July 4th, or until we run out of 50 seats, whichever happens first. I guess we'll find out. And yeah, so that will be running through July 4th weekend. So that is the complete Unreal Filmmaking Bootcamp. All of the best templates, best cheat sheets, all in one place to just give you everything you're gonna need along the way. And the thing to look at here is, again, this will eliminate all of your camera gear. You no longer need camera gear in order to practice filmmaking. You don't need to get the buddies together and have people flake out at you at the last minute just because you want to practice. You can do it on your own and develop your skills as a filmmaker, and then later on, spend the money, get the budgets together when you're ready to make that big film. But you can practice on your own and become a much better filmmaker. Literally, there's nothing holding you back, and you can bring those full ideas to life using Unreal Engine 5 without rendering, without any of the old school visual effects techniques. So that's really what we're talking about here, is the ability to practice filmmaking for free using Unreal Engine 5. So a lot of people do ask, these are just the most common questions I get asked every single time, is what computer am I gonna need? Like, I have a kind of crappy workstation. Unreal isn't gonna work for my computer, right? But the baseline here is, if you have a gaming PC, then Unreal Engine will run on your computer. Like, Unreal Engine is built to run on computers. It's not built to be challenging. So if you have a gaming PC, you definitely have a machine that's good enough to get started. And that goes for MacBooks as well. If you have an M2 chip or above, Unreal Engine 5 is completely supported on M2 chips and above. So if you have a Mac, or you have a gaming PC or gaming laptop, Unreal Engine is totally accessible, and you don't need a crazy $8,000 computer. And a lot of people end up upgrading as you go. I'm sure lots of you gamer folks out there know that you can definitely upgrade your GPU as you progress and as you get bigger and better clients. So as you get bigger and better freelance work, you can just put that charge onto the client, have them pay for that $30.90 or whatever it is, and then you don't really have to worry about it. That's how the big studios do it anyway. So, and then I also have a lot of people saying, this is great, but honestly, I'm just not a technical person. I don't know how to program, and this just seems like it's gonna be too complicated. I totally get that, and I definitely felt that way too. But what was very interesting is, the more I learned about Unreal Engine, I realized you don't really need to know how to code at all. Like, I don't code anything. I'm not a programmer at all inside of Unreal Engine. The only thing you have to understand is logic. And if you understand logic, then you can understand blueprints, and whether you're a complete beginner or you're super advanced, it's just going through basic programming logic, and we'll definitely teach you everything else along the way. Once you kind of look at it through a different lens, it becomes super, super simple to apply all these lessons. So a couple last testimonials here, and then we'll go into some Q&A. If you have any questions on this, throw it in the chat. I'll pull the chat up here, and we'll go through any questions you have, whether it's about filmmaking, whether it's about the offer over the weekend, whether it's about Godzilla or anything I missed in the presentation. Throw it in the chat. Would love to answer any questions for any of y'all out there. But yeah, we worked with Louis Cha as well. He was someone who was a complete beginner, never used 3D software, never used Maya, never used Blender. He actually sent me an email saying he was super nervous at the beginning, saying like, dude, I don't think I'm gonna be able to learn this. Can I get a refund if it doesn't work? And I was like, you know what? Sure. If it doesn't work at all, I don't really, yeah. That's totally cool, dude. And he said he was super surprised. 3 weeks in, he got through the entire training. It fit into his schedule, and he was able to actually start making films, start making projects in Unreal. The same was true for Felipe Fenner. He was more of a live action filmmaker at the beginning, but he added 3D into his arsenal using Unreal Engine. And he was saying that, yeah, now he can work faster and more focused as a director and 3D artist. So it really empowered him as a filmmaker. And then lastly, we had Jay Lee, who made those Blade Runner shots we saw earlier, who said this is easily the best Unreal 5 course out there, and that he'd recommend it to his friends in a heartbeat. Really cool stuff. Anyway, you get it. You get the picture. To me, it's much more important to look at the work that's coming out of the students themselves. That to me was always the bottom line for do these courses work or not? And thankfully, people like Jay Lee, a lot of folks now have gone through this and made some really great films and brought these cool ideas to life. So that is all available over at unrealforvfx.com/go if you want to check that out. We've also helped Tom Davis, who is over at Sony ImageWorks. He's a character animator over at Sony ImageWorks in the industry today. Worked on Spider-Verse, and he said this was super easy to understand compared to other Unreal 5 courses out there. So yeah, at this point, we've worked with a lot of students, and I would love to work close with you as well. Work one-on-one, shoulder to shoulder, and emulate that experience of learning Unreal, mastering it for filmmaking together. We've helped a ton of people, and I know we can help you do the same thing if you want to get started this weekend. So now's the best time. It's going to be $200 off the normal price. You can get started today for just $397 over at unrealforvfx.com/go and get all the cool bonuses that we talked about today. And yeah, that'll just be available over this weekend. So this will close down Sunday night. Yeah, we'll go from there. So if you have any questions, throw them in. Otherwise, you'll get Unreal Fundamentals and the Demo Reel bonus chapter, complete with the plane models, and our Dune project file, complete with the ornithopters, so you can literally make your own action sequences yourself. All of that for just $397 or 4 payments of $99, whatever works best for you guys. So yeah, that is what we'll be going over the weekend. We'll turn it back over to the Q&A and look at the chat here, but unrealforvfx.com/go is the link there that you guys can click. And also want to say thanks to Ty for signing up. We'll see you in the Discord, my man. Super cool to see. So yeah, that is over there at unrealforvfx.com/go. So I'll answer some questions here, and yeah, see where this goes. So Dave Kachow. Yeah, love the name. Recognize you from last week. Welcome back. Awesome. So do you get permanent access to the Masterclass? So yes, you get lifetime access, and you also get lifetime updates to Unreal Fundamentals. So I'm also literally right before this live stream, we're working on chapter 13, which is how to create your own control rigs inside of Unreal. So literally, we're continuing to add to this. We're not going to stop until this has all the lessons a beginner would need to start making films in Unreal. That was kind of my promise I made to myself at the beginning, and that's really what we're going to stick to it. So we got a really awesome update coming, and actually, I didn't even teach it. So it's one of those things where I'm not the best rigging artist out there. There are many other people that have spent years just making rigs for games. So instead of teaching it myself, I found a rigging artist who worked on Senua's Hellblade, which is the amazing metahuman example you've probably seen if you're in the Unreal Engine world. But Senua's Hellblade was an awesome new game. The sequel, Hellblade 2, just came out. And we actually got Camilla Bianchi, who worked on that game and brought that amazing AAA title to life. She's going to teach you how to make control rigs in chapter 13. So if I'm not the best person for it, I'm going to find the best people out there to make sure that you get the best training out there. So yeah, that's coming in just over a week. Hopefully we'll have that up by next week. So yeah, if you sign up, you'll get lifetime access to all of those updates. And yeah, we'll continue to update it if there's anything missing as we go. I'm also seeing Jacob. Welcome aboard, my man. We'll see you in the Discord. And yeah, hope to see some cool progress this week. We'll definitely we'll see you in the next Work in Progress Wednesday, and check in and see where you get to in your first week. That's awesome, man. Well, cool. We'll answer some more questions here. Also, yeah, seeing some people ask about Nuke X. Is Nuke X free now? So yeah, Nuke X is completely free. So another thing that I want to bring up too right now, so talking about that last step, how do you really polish your Unreal renders and go from something that looks good to something that looks perfectly photoreal, that looks just like your favorite Hollywood films? Well, that is compositing, as we kind of went through today. It is this secret step known as compositing. And the critical thing that I learned when I watched Godzilla in the movie theater, I used After Effects. But after I watched Godzilla and I looked at the behind the scenes and saw how they made that film, what I didn't realize is that they weren't using After Effects or Resolve or anything else like that to make movies like Godzilla. They were using Nuke. But the weird thing is that only 10% of people, I took a poll on my YouTube channel, only 10% of people know how to use Nuke. And I was in the same boat early on. Nuke was the software that allowed me to make that leap into the visual effects industry. When so many people were clinging on to After Effects, when I was 15, 16, I realized this early on, and that was actually one of those critical steps that allowed me to break into the industry much earlier than everyone else, was that I was just like focused on the one software that mattered. So this is why, to me, I made the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass so we could tie these two together. So if you want to learn all of these crazy secrets that go into the crazy compositing behind movies like Avengers, like Godzilla vs. Kong, you can use the same software, Nuke X. It's completely for free on their website. So just type in Nuke X non-commercial, and you can download this completely for free. You do not have to pay for Nuke on your own personal projects. I did not pay for Nuke for the longest time. I use it now for indie projects. But yeah, that is like it's completely free to start using on your own projects. A lot of people just don't know this and they just assume. So the cool part about Nuke is that you don't really have to pay until you're at a studio. And generally speaking, most times the studios will be the ones paying for it, or your client will be the one paying for it. So that's the thing that most people don't really know about, in case that wasn't clear about Nuke specifically. But that is the big problem, is only 1 in 10 artists could actually do that work on Hollywood visual effects. If you wanted to work on those movies like Planet of the Apes, or like I said, Avengers Endgame, or Avatar, they're all done using Nuke X, not through After Effects. So the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass will take you from a complete beginner all the way to knowing how to composite your shots in Nuke, even if you've never touched Nuke before in your life. So I know a lot of people, like, they know compositing, they've used other softwares, they've scratched the surface, but they want to learn Nuke without spending another 4 months learning a bunch of brand new software. So I went through, I tried to pull out the most critical lessons that I've learned over the many, many years compositing, and we go through everything that's important in just 6 hours of training. So you can go through this entire process. You'll get this project file, you'll get these exact renders from Unreal, from my Mr. Freeze project, and we'll show you how to go from renders like this all the way to polished final visual effects, complete with stock footage, complete with finished renders, so you actually have footage to work with from day one, and you're not working on some hypotheticals, you're working on real renders so you can learn these real techniques. We also go through the full green screen workflow, so if you ever wanted to work on live action footage and bring that into Unreal, this is the workflow that we walk through, is how to start from a green screen shot, how to recreate that camera move, and eventually replace your green screen backgrounds with Unreal Engine. So we walk through that whole process, show you the fastest way at all parts of the pipeline. This is the fastest way to do it, and combine Nuke and Unreal together so that you can get some great final results. We give you a bunch of cool test renders. We have like 5 additional shots. And like I said, you get lifetime updates on the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass, just like you do with Unreal Fundamentals. So we're gonna add in some bonus chapters breaking down Godzilla in just a few weeks here. So that's gonna be some extra bonuses coming in just a few weeks. But yeah, the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass is all of my secrets to great cinematic renders every single time. We've had some great students go through this. We've had some ILM artists actually go through this masterclass, which got me a little bit nervous, thinking like, am I gonna teach these experts some new tricks? And it was really cool to hear that, yes, even people like Howard Gersh, who's worked on Star Wars Episode 3 back in the day and has worked at ILM for many, many years, he used Nuke in production, but he said his shots would have truly benefited from all the cool nuggets that he learned in the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass. So we were able to teach some legends in the industry some brand new tricks. I'm a student of the game, and I'm always trying to come up with some new stuff. So you'll learn the best stuff I got out there. Again, I really don't hold anything back inside of these. And then also for the beginners out there, we worked with Jean Denis, who never touched Nuke in his life, but he's able to pick up the basics of both Unreal and compositing as a complete beginner. So if you want all 10 years of the greatest insights in a single day of learning, that's the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass. This is also on sale this weekend for $100 off. You can add it to your cart over at unrealforvfx.com/go. So that same link, you'll see it in your checkout there. If you want to add that to your cart, it's $100 off over the weekend as well. Both of these sales are going to end on Sunday night. But if you want $100 off the Unreal to Nuke Masterclass, that's also available, so that you can go from a beginner knowing nothing about Nuke to mastering everything that's important in just a single weekend. We want to make it easy. We want to make it fast. It's super important. It's not just to teach it, but to teach it in a really short time frame. So you can actually apply these lessons to your own work as fast as possible. So yeah, that's the full offer for the weekend. I'll put it up on screen one last time here, unrealforvfx.com/go. Click the link in the chat or in the description right now if you want to check out that offer. It's only going to be available for a limited time here over the weekend, and you can get started for just $99. We want to make it super, super easy and kind of a no-brainer for any one of y'all out there. So if you're on the fence, you can get started for $99, and if there's anything wrong for any reason, if 29 days from now, you're like, hey, you know what? I didn't really learn what I thought I would. Just shoot us an email at learn@unrealforvfx.com. That's our support email. It's just learn@unrealforvfx.com. Shoot us an email, and we'll get back to you right away with a full refund. No questions asked. Super easy. If it didn't work, we don't want to charge you anything. We only want to help you get that result. So that's going to be the best way to do it at unrealforvfx.com up until Sunday night. So yeah, we'll jump back into the chat here. Seeing some questions from Dave and Tom, but definitely if you got any last questions, throw them in the chat right now. We'll get those answered before we part ways here tonight. But appreciate all you guys sticking around late into the evening, putting in the extra innings. And if you're willing to spend even just this amount of extra time in the class we had today, I know if you apply what you learned here in this masterclass today, that you can make some really incredible films. And definitely, if you make films using any of the techniques you used today, please, please, please shoot me a DM. Send me an email or a DM on any platform, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram, and shoot me a message with that work. I would love to take a look, and if you want some feedback or anything like that, send it over. Would love to take a look. So, Dave Kachow, did you ever check out my recent Godzilla animation on my YouTube channel? Oh, dude, Dave, if you could, shoot me that in my Instagram DM. I'll definitely see that, because if it's cool, I thought it might be a cool idea to turn that into a video, to actually look at that, kind of break it down, and just give advice on what could be, what could take it from good to great. So if you're down to let me to look at that, let me know. Just shoot that over via Instagram. But yeah, I would love to take a look at that and really dive in deep and give you some super actionable advice that you could come out of that. And it might be cool to kind of show people how you can go from these early renders and what it takes to go to that Hollywood look. I feel like a lot of it is repetition and just seeing it over and over and over again. So yeah, that would be super, super cool. Turn into a video as well. That'd be super fun. Tom and Altameen. If I join your course, what is going after 1 year with your community subscription? So yeah, the community, that community will be, you'll have lifetime access to that community. That's just more to show that hey, we're gonna give you access to this community. A lot of people charge for the same thing out there. To me, if you bought into the training, we'll give you that outside support whenever you need it inside of the Discord. That's that's the bottom line there. That's what we're trying to give you there with that Discord access. So if you sign up today, you'll get lifetime access to that Discord and to all the resources, all the project files, all that stuff there. Also, Landship Productions. Hey Josh, honestly, I'm hesitant to start off Unreal Engine because of how long it's going to take me to learn. Dude, I totally understand that. Especially, it can feel like there's a little bit of a mountain ahead. But I think with Unreal Fundamentals, that's the biggest reason why I wanted to provide the $99 option, is that I think, honestly, I thought it was ambitious. I wasn't sure if beginners would be able to learn Unreal in just 21 days. That was a bit of a gamble. I wrote it as if that would be possible, but we've just seen it time and time again. People like Louis Cha, if you saw him earlier, he also started out as someone who was he wrote me a message before he signed up. He was saying, dude, I'm pretty nervous about this. I'm not an expert. I'm not a game developer. Are you really sure that I can do this? And I let him know, dude, I got your back. I'll make sure you get this. If you need resources, we're there in the Discord. We also send you every single day, we send you a reminder and we send you a cheat sheet of what you need to tackle today, so you never get left behind. You literally get sent 21, there's that 21 days I mentioned, where anyone can learn this in 21 days. Where that number comes from is that once you sign up for 21 days after, you're gonna get an email from me going over what you need to learn today, what lessons you should cover in the 30 minutes that we're gonna spend, and all the cheat sheets and most important lessons that you need to remember in that email. And the point is really just to make sure you stay on track the entire time. I know how hard it can be to stay accountable, especially as a self-taught artist. I've pretty much self-taught me every skill I've needed along the way. Some come very easy, some take a lot of time to master. And Unreal Engine, it's one of those things, if you do it on your own, it probably will take you a long time. I'm just telling you that from experience. I'm not trying to psych you out or anything like that. That's exactly why I built Unreal Fundamentals. It's to make sure that learning path is so simple, even a fourth grader could do it. And literally, we just had this go into some a fifth grade class, not a fourth grade class, but we just had a fifth grade class in Alberta, Canada, starting out with Unreal Fundamentals, where the whole class is going to do it, because this is not just for the senior visual effects artist to learn this brand new skill. It's for everyone. This really is accessible by everyone. And honestly, that 30-day refund policy is there because, hey, if anything happens, if you're unable to learn it, you have nothing to worry about. You'll get a full refund. If it doesn't work for you, just shoot us an email and we'll give you a full refund on your purchase. So literally nothing to worry about there. We want to make it super easy. That's the bottom line. So hopefully that answers your question there. If there's anything else I could dive deeper on, a lot of people too, it's either they're unsure if they can do the game dev side or they're unsure if they can really do the filmmaking side. And the bottom line is that filmmaking workflow we showed you today, that's how you get good at filmmaking. It's not by doing a ton of complex, by making these complex VFX shots in Unreal. It's actually by making those simple sequences. So we'll teach you how to go through that whole previs process, how to do it with free characters and free animations, and do it in a super beginner-friendly way. So I definitely think we got you covered. We've had so many beginners go through it, not really experienced in Unreal, that are totally shocked by how fast they were able to master all these things. So yeah, if you get in there, you go through the Discord, you'll be able to talk to a lot of other folks that have gone through it, that have gone through this in that short amount of time. And if you're serious, if you think like, I'm not sure, but you got the 3 weeks ahead of you where you can put in the time, you have those couple hours after work. If you have the time, then I swear, nothing's gonna get in your way. The biggest thing is just making those couple extra hours a week, whether that's after work, whether that's on the weekends, in the mornings, in the afternoons, wherever it takes. It's gonna take you about 3 to 4 hours per week, 30 minutes a day. And we've seen it consistently that people have been able to finish the entire training in that amount of time. So hopefully that answers everything we talked about there. I'm also seeing Tristan. Tristan, welcome into to Unreal Fundamentals. Welcome aboard, my man. And then I'll also, we'll go through 2 more questions here. My voice is definitely drying out, so I think we need to shut this down soon, but we'll answer a couple more questions as well. DJ Promethazine, I think. Will you see the green screen masterclass separate? So yeah, the Unreal to Nuke masterclass is a separate training from Unreal Fundamentals. If you just want to go in and learn the green screen workflow, how to work with footage and Unreal together, then you can just check out the Unreal to Nuke masterclass at unrealforvfx.com/nuke. So you can check that out there. Otherwise, you can get that for $100 off if you add that to your order at unrealforvfx.com/go. There we go. And then I'm seeing Ewiniverse. Yeah, you should definitely send us an email at learn@unrealforvfx.com. That is our go-to email. So if you send us an email there, Dominique's gonna get back to you pretty much every day. If we're getting an email sent over there, yeah, she does a great job at getting back to you. So if you need any questions or any problems with your account, Ewan, definitely hit us up over there. We'll also see the Nate Snap. The control rig thing is a specific question. I believe you can do this in Sequencer by adding a control rig track and ensuring that you have your control rig controls. So yeah, we're gonna add the control rig training into Unreal, but the bottom line is you add your character into Sequencer. You can add animations from Mixamo.com and from these outside websites. You can import free animations, and then to edit those animations, as long as you have a control rig inside of Unreal, you can modify any part of that animation. So you could change your feet. So if the feet are clipping through the floor, which you see all the time in video game cinematics, you can just move those up. And if you need to, like, you know, in the War of Being, we had to assemble our sword. We had to tie the hands so they both attach to the sword and they all twist together correctly. That was a huge component of that, all done through Control Rig, where we took a pre-existing animation and we just made a couple extra small modifications inside of Sequencer. So that's the workflow there. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions over the weekend, shoot us an email over at learn@unrealforvfx.com. We'll get back to you over the weekend. And yeah, otherwise, take advantage of our lowest price ever over at unrealforvfx.com/go. Check this out right here. That's going to be the link at the very top of the screen, unrealforvfx.com/go. And you can get started for just $99 over the weekend. So hope that helps and makes it easy to get started and start making your own blockbuster films inside of Unreal Engine. Really appreciate all of y'all sticking around to the end here and asking some really great questions. Taking this super seriously. If you are a filmmaker, like many of you are, or a VFX artist, sticking around, you are my people, and you'll see on the channel, I'm gonna share many more secrets as we continue to make these films and build in public, fail in public, teach you all the stuff that we're learning along the way so that we all can make films a little bit faster and a little bit easier together. So hope this helped you learn something new. We'll catch you in the next live stream or the next video. Make sure to subscribe on the channel if you haven't, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.